Joe Rogan Podcast. Check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
What's up, buddy?
Hey, bro.
Still alive. You are still alive. This is a truthful title to this book.
That's true. It's ridiculous, but it's true. And it's catchy. That's the whole point.
Dude, I watched your show the other day, the television show. What is the television show?
Mysterious Creatures?
Yes.
The new one? Yeah.
And you were looking for some wolf thing?
The red wolf.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they didn't think it was a red wolf. They thought it was like some mystical
a howler.
beast.
An Ozark howler.
Oh, my goodness. Which, wolves do howl.
Yeah. No, that was an interesting story. If you look at the timeline from when this cryptid, this howler popped up, it's right when the red wolf was starting to plummet in its numbers. And as soon as wolves plummet, they call to each other, right? They howl.
Ah, that makes sense.
So it's like, oh, we're hearing this thing and the spooky thing that we've seen running around the woods. And it's like, well, yeah, it's wolves trying to find each other.
Ah.
And it happened to also overlap with when moonshining was like a big deal. So they perpetuated the rumor of the howler to keep people out of the woods.
Right.
So it like checked all these boxes to like make up this animal.
Is there any cryptid that you find compelling?
Just I think we talked about it before, the Megatherium, the giant ground sloth in Peru.
Yeah.
That's the only one. I mean, depends what you define as cryptid, right? Like I'm not a Bigfoot guy or Loch Ness monster, but thylacine could be considered a cryptid, right?
Yeah, because it was alive. We do have video footage of it, and there's been a bunch of sightings.
Yes, but now you have all these Bigfoot-esque people, right? All these sort of tinfoil hat guys who are like, it's here, I've seen it, or whatever. And so it's like started to fade into this cryptid realm. And I still think that in Papua New Guinea, there could be an extant population.
Why in Papua New Guinea?
So they used to range, we got right into this. This is great, by the way. So they used to range from PNG, from New Guinea, all the way down to Tasmania. And then as people came over, they brought dingoes with them, right? And this is like 4,000 years ago. And then the dingoes outcompeted the thylacine in mainland Australia and, in theory, in Papua New Guinea. But dingoes were never introduced into Tasmania, which is why thylacine occurred for so much longer in Tasmania. However, why in Papua New Guinea is because it's such a dramatic habitat. There's so many like valleys and canyons and things that dingoes just probably couldn't traverse. That would mean that there's isolated, unexplored areas that the thylacine, because it had evolved there, could still be thriving without the competition.
And for people who don't know what a thylacine is, it's a Tasmanian tiger.
Yeah. It's a marsupial, wolf, crazy jaw, stripes.
Crazy jaw. Like really wild looking.
180 degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool looking animal. Like,
Yeah.
Look at that thing.
So when you talk about, cryptids and blah, 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 I still think that these animals could be out there.
Didn't you go looking for one at one point in time?
Twice.
Twice.
Yeah.
And did you have any sightings or any, at least, amongst the people that you were around, or any credible reports?
No.
Nothing?
Well, reports, yes. I mean, there's a guy named Nick Mooney who is like an incredible, that's Benjamin, the last living thylacine in the zoo in Hobart, Tasmania. A guy named Nick Mooney who's like a state biologist, like renowned naturalist and biologist who has no reason to make this up or anything, and he swears that he saw one in Tasmania about 25 years ago. And he's like, I know every animal in Tasmania. I am a biologist. I work with Fish and Game or fish, whatever their equivalent is. He's like, why would I make this up? He's like, I didn't even tell anybody for a year or two because I didn't want to be called a kook.
Wow.
And then he came out with it and sort of began this whole thing. But yeah, I mean, definitely some credible sightings.
How would one even do a survey of those areas? If you're talking about like rainforests and tropical jungles and just dense wooded areas, how would one even find what's in there?
And for the most part, unexplored, too, especially when it comes to PNG and Western Papua. Well, that's the thing. I think that's the barrier to entry, right? Anybody can go to Tasmania, drive down a highway, and be like, oh, I looked and I didn't find it, which is basically what I did. But to get into those places that they could be extant requires helicopter support, refuels, tons of local ground support, like local hunters and tribal people that know the land. And so it's a big, expensive operation to try and get into these places. And then, that's just getting in. Then you'd pepper it with trail cameras, baited cameras. You'd do some scent trailing, some sound calling, all these. I mean, you're a hunter. You know these techniques.
Well, it's interesting because we know that mountain lions are real. but most people don't ever see a mountain lion.
Right.
And a lot of people that live in like these heavily wooded areas don't see mountain lions.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to find one, and they're everywhere.
They live in our cities.
Yeah, there's a shit ton of them.
Yeah.
So you might get lucky and catch one, but the populations are pretty great in terms of, like,
Right.
like if you're in Colorado or if you're in Utah, I mean, they have a lot of mountain lions.
Right.
And it's very rare that you see one.
Exactly.
So imagine if there was a very small population of mountain lions or Tasmanian tigers. And, you went looking in a much more wooded area, much more dense environment.
Much larger, too. Huge swaths of unpopulated land. And if they were intelligent and cryptic like a mountain lion, which they probably were because they were at the top of the food chain, they know and they choose not to be seen. Like P-22, right? The mountain lion that lived in L.A.
We have a big photo of him out here.
The one with the Hollywood sign? Yeah.
It's a great picture.
I just love that photo.
Yeah.
He's
dead now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
did they kill him? Did they euthanize?
They euthanized him. Yeah.
Something was wrong with him, right? Like he was badly injured.
I think he got hit by a car. I think. Don't quote me on that. But there was some injury. I think it was a car strike, and he was an old cat as well. So yeah.
What do you think of the orang pendek?
I think it's interesting. Have you ever seen that motorcycle video where the guy's on the motorcycle and he sees the little guy run across?
Yeah.
So that's supposed to be orang pendek, right? And
Well,
so,
let's see if we can find that.
Sure.
That one is weird because
yeah. There you
so
go.
Here, is that real?
It's so. And is this a kid?
That looks
fake. Well,
That looks
that one
so
looks
fake.
over embellished. But if you watch the actual video, So this is the video I've seen. I think that we love humanoids. Like as a species, we love the
Just
idea.
play the video.
It's not. It doesn't play. It's all still frames.
All of it?
It's all someone talking about this. It's not the video.
Oh,
I
well,
just
that
clicked on
looks
the
so
first
fake.
Yeah, it does.
That's a still frame of it. But that could just be a naked dude.
Totally.
That
could
totally
be a crazy
looks like
person.
a dude.
Yeah.
That doesn't even look that hairy.
But I think
Look at the proportions. Looks like a person. Did they have like something to judge it by? I've seen the actual video though, Jamie. See if we can find the actual video because that's not it.
Yeah,
There you
this
go.
is the same one I've seen.
Yeah.
And I think in relation to like the motorcycle and the guy, even though there's some forced perspective, it's tiny.
Yes.
Right? So it looks like a dude, but that would be like a
So
4
here it
foot tall
is.
guy.
So here's these guys. They're on this motorcycle, racing along.
Was that the one? I felt like it ran across before.
Yeah, that one looks fake.
This one looks fake. I'm
That one looks
certain
like
I
a
saw a different
full-on
one.
setup. The
Yes.
guys slow their bike down just in time.
Yeah, this one's nonsense.
What? Well, that was where it ran across the road. The one that I saw, though, I thought it was dark-haired.
And it ran like this way across the road,
and it
right?
was a very quick and brief video.
Same. That's the one that I'm thinking
video.
of as well.
17 million views.
Well, maybe this is probably it then.
But I don't. It's hard to remember because I've seen so many stupid fucking videos. But I seem to remember it looking almost like an ape person.
I think, my opinion, and I'm not really,
See if you can find anything, Jim.
I'm looking.
Okay.
I'm not really qualified to speak on like these humanoid cryptid things, but like we have Khoisan in southern Africa, right? The small bushman. Mm-hmm. In Borneo, Sumatra, and places like this, there are still very isolated groups of tribal people, and sure, they're talking about proportions of small people and all of that, but what's stopping a teenager? Doesn't matter. I don't care what tribe you're from. If you're a teenager, you're going out there and you're being rebellious, right?
Right.
From going out with a spear to go on a hunt and deciding to continue going, and then he crosses a road, and now it's become a Bigfoot or an pendek or whatever because he gets startled. Maybe he's doing something illegal or wrong or whatever and runs. Somebody catches it on their helmet
Right.
cam, and now it's perpetuating into this big thing.
Or they see it in low light. They see it at dawn.
Right.
Yeah. If you think about that island of Flores, though, that's where things get interesting. Like when
Mia Flores, right?
the Homo floriensis.
Yeah.
How do you say it?
I'm not sure.
I think it's Homo
Floriensis.
floriensis.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Floriensis. But that's the little hobbit person that they've confirmed lived alongside people as recently as I forget how long ago.
It's like 8,000 or 10,000 years ago or something like that.
They think it was fairly recent. Like
Yeah.
within like after the Ice Age.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and there are, across the human species, there are so many diverse-looking cultures and tribes and peoples, right? We're all humans, but, Aboriginal people, African people, Indonesian people, Asian people, we all look different, and we all have these own distinct characteristics. And so to think about, imagine being a Westerner or whatever, being an Indonesian like in that video, and then you see someone who looks so different than your own culture, and you're not expectant of it. It's very easy to let your imagination turn into this whole other species, this cryptic thing, versus like maybe this is someone from a different tribe who's in a different area. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying it's.
And then there's also, they keep finding new extinct species of humans, right? Like Denisovans and all. I think there was another one that they found recently that they're trying to figure out what it is. But they're very human-like in terms of Homo sapien-like, but a slightly different branch of the chain.
Yeah, with different like jaw morphologies or cranium shapes or whatever. And I think we used to, up until 15, 20 years ago, only think that there was like 2 or 3 species of humanoid ever. Right. And now there's like, I want to say 8. Yeah. Which is pretty crazy.
Well, that leads me to Bigfoot, because I think that all these stories of Bigfoot, I think like that Native Americans have a bunch of different names for some creature that lives, some large hairy creature. And we know about Gigantopithecus. I think that's what that is. I think people just have a distant memory of it.
Like a remnant memory that's evolved over time.
Yeah, which is probably the same thing as dragons. And I know we talked about that.
Yeah. Well, and also, by the way, it could be the same thing as thylacine, going back to that, right? Like, they could have been in PNG, where these tribes are still talking about them 4,000 years ago, and this lore of the striped dog that sounds weird, that has this funny jaw, has been passed down generation to generation, to the point where somebody's out on a hunt or a walk and they see a flash and they go, oh, that was that striped dog my grandfather told me about. Now it's real.
I saw a squirrel once in Alberta, and for a full second I thought it was a wolf.
Please tell me how that happened.
I was looking for wolves.
Yeah.
I was looking for it to be a wolf. I definitely saw a wolf once.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool. It was either a wolf or a large coyote, but I'm pretty sure it was a wolf.
In Alberta?
Yeah, because it was at dusk, and it ran across the road, and I was with Cam Haynes, and we both noticed it. And it looked like a wolf.
Just too big and stocky.
But it was, distant, getting dark, hard to tell, but they're up there. There's a shit ton of them. I mean, they have tons of trail cameras of them.
Yeah.
And they see them there all the time. But I saw this thing run across this like down tree, and it was the tail of this squirrel, and for like a full second, I was like, oh my God, is that a wolf fur? That's a fucking squirrel. God, you're dumb. That was like that was how it played out in my mind.
But you had already made it to be a wolf in your head. And if you hadn't seen the rest of the squirrel, you had always seen a wolf.
Yeah, I saw a wolf, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what I think people do with black bears that stand up on hind legs, and they see Bigfoot.
Black panthers. You see a house cat run across the road out in the woods, and it's black, and the perspective, you don't have any scale, and you go, I saw a black panther.
Yep. Yeah. But I mean, the wolf thing is interesting, because it's like, they're reintroducing wolves in different parts of America, and now they're trying to do it to Colorado, and it's like, I hope you guys know what you're doing, because this idea that you're going to be able to control their populations once you reintroduce them, you're not even going to find them.
Right. Correct. Yeah. And I mean, like we've seen a wolf pack, I'm blanking on the name of it now, but it's moved all the way down from Washington through Oregon. Now it's all the way to Central California, right? San Luis Obispo County, Central California. I don't think they're resident, but they've dipped in because we have tracking collars on them, right?
Wow.
So they've come all the way from Washington, all the way through Oregon.
San Luis Obispo.
Isn't that wild?
Wow.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
Incredible. And they are helpful to the environment. They do fill a role, and they outcompete the coyotes, and, their population's insane.
They'll also kill your kids.
They'll also kill your kids.
Yeah.
They can.
I mean, they are fucking predators, and they don't have any rules. Like, we are so goofy and naive when it comes to the idea of predators. We think, like, well, we have an agreement, a spoken agreement with the people of the forest. living beings of the forest, I am your friend. I used to live in Boulder, Colorado, and there's this lady I knew who was a yoga instructor.
That says a lot.
I told her, she was the best. I told her that I saw a mountain lion. She goes, well, when I go into the woods, I literally say a prayer, and I let the creatures of the woods know I know them, and I offer no harm. I am there only to just peacefully walk amongst them.
Yeah.
I am not a threat. Well, you shut the fuck up.
Yeah, go for a walk through the African bush for one night and see how well that does.
Like, what are you talking about, lady? You zig when you could have zagged, and you run into a bear and you're fucking dead.
100%.
Shut up. Just
Yeah,
shut up. They eat yoga instructors too. Like this idea that you're gonna I send out a message of peace.
We've become so jaded in the sense of like nature is in harmony and balance. That's
Yeah.
like this Western idea of like everything's so harmonious in nature.
It's terrifying.
It's the opposite, you know?
It's such a dumb perspective.
It
and
is.
It's so misinformed. It's just based on idealistic perspectives. It's based on, this idea of a utopia that exists in the woods. It's just not. It's tooth, fang, and claw.
Correct.
It's fucking chaos.
It's also based on disconnect, in my opinion.
Yes.
If you've spent time in the wild,
Yes.
if you've spent time, I don't care if you're fishing, hunting, hiking, camping, whatever, but like somewhere that is really raw, you're
Yeah.
like, holy shit, no, it's not, all Shangri-La out here. Like
No,
it is eat or be
not at
eaten.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah, not at all. No other video of the orang pendek? Is that?
That seems to be it. I found
it?
a video that looks less fake, but it's the same video, so it just did a better job.
All right, let's see what that one looks like. It looks less fake.
Oh, actually, I just lost it. I'll be honest with you. I have the one that we looked up. It's that video.
It's the
That's
same one?
All the stories, all the Daily Mail, everything goes back to that video.
Oh, okay.
Must have been that. I think I might have seen just a clip of it, not
Probably.
that longer.
Yeah. Yeah, they probably didn't show the one when he's running on the road itself because it looks so fake.
So it looks like shit. Yeah. Versus the one where he darts across. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a naked person.
Yeah, it
Or
does.
like a person in a spandex costume.
Dude, I went to a wedding in downtown Los Angeles a couple years ago, and there was a guy, probably had a mental illness, but he was like 6'5", walking down downtown LA, butt naked with this massive schlong just bouncing between his knees. It looked like a different species to me. I mean, this huge beard, like 6'5", massive dude just trotting down the street
If
of
you
LA.
saw that in the woods going in between the trees from a distance,
100%.
you would say, oh my God, there's giants in the woods.
I'm a Bigfoot believer like that. If I had seen
Yeah.
that exact guy cruising through a park,
Right.
cruising out in the woods, I'm a believer.
Especially if he's covered in dirt and it's dark out. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, mentally ill people do wind up moving to the woods.
It's happened.
Yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
happens all the time. I remember there's this one guy who was famous in Maine he was a legend that he would break into people's houses and steal their stuff. And then they found out that he was a real person. And he had dropped out of society in like the 1970s and just decided to completely live by himself. Like he didn't talk to people for decades.
Oh, wow.
And he was by himself alone in a tent in the woods, and he would just steal stuff from people's houses when they weren't around.
Wow.
Yeah, and like live off of whatever he found or ate, and I don't know like what his like woodscraft was like. Is this it? Stranger in the Woods. Yeah, this
Sounds
is the
like
story.
it.
For 27 years,
That's
Christopher Knight lived alone in a clandestine wooded camp in a tiny Rome. I don't know what that is. Undiscovered and unaided, breaking into camps to steal what he needed to survive. When he finally captured and arrested in April 2013, the story of the North Pond Hermit made headlines worldwide. But Knight spoke only to one journalist, Michael Finkel. In an exclusive excerpt from his new book, Finkel explains the origins of the whispered myth that haunted central Maine for decades, the legend of the stranger in the woods.
It's pretty cool.
It is kind of cool.
It's cool. He did his own.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, I'm sure he had all kinds of probably issues, right? But,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But he lived his own, he made his own path. He lived off of stuff. It reminds me, have you ever heard of the Japanese survivor in Guam? Have you heard about that story?
Yes, I did. Yeah. Tell that story.
So from my understanding, during World War II, there was a crash in Guam and from a dogfight. And this Japanese pilot or guy who was in the plane went and hid in a cave up on a mountain in Guam. And he spent until 2002 living in this cave thinking that World War II was continuing, and he thought he had a better life living in a cave and living off of the jungle because Guam is like a hub for, I think, United or Delta, one of the major airlines. So all these planes are coming in and out every day, and he thinks it's World War II continuing.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's military bases and everything else in Guam. So
Was it really 2002?
Jamie would have to look, but it was very
like
recent.
The 80s or something. I didn't know it was like that's he must have been old as fuck.
Yeah, he was like in his 70s or so. I don't. I'm probably getting the date wrong.
We'll
but
find it, but
yeah,
still, that's so crazy.
But can you imagine?
How would you know? How would you know? And what if you fucked up and went in too early?
Right.
You know, and then it is still World War II, and they shoot you.
Exactly.
You just hang out for another year.
Yep. Just I'll spend a couple more days in the cave.
Oh my God. So what is
There's
it?
2 stories actually. We'll go with this one first. Is the one you were talking about.
Okay, so this one
97.
97.
Oh,
Well,
died in
he
97.
died in 97.
Yeah.
So
Because of
years
World
of service 41 to 45, and then it says 1972. I
But
guess.
do you see that? 28 years of hiding in
Yeah.
the jungles of Guam.
Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about there with 45.
So
they found him in 72.
I just saw a story this morning, which it's not new. It apparently was in 2013. There was a man. A man took his 2 sons after Vietnam came, and they were hid in the woods for 40 years.
Wow, forced to live off rats and make loincloths out of tree bark. Man who spent 41 years living in the jungle after fleeing Vietnam War makes emotional return to his former home. 41 years. Look at the picture of him.
Social skills, obviously, and he didn't know what a woman was. He said
Really?
his father didn't tell him what a woman was. They saw 5 people their whole life and hid from him in the woods when they saw him. This is according to what I read earlier today.
God.
Do you think,
Oh my God.
like, would you, if you're put into his position, is it worth living
He's
like
85?
His father was.
Oh.
Father 85.
I just looked at that really
Yeah.
quick. I'm like, God damn, he looks great. Maybe that's how we're supposed to live.
Yeah, rat head was his favorite.
Rat head.
dude,
Well, who doesn't like a
favorite
good rat head? Why is his haircut so good?
that? That's a good question.
This is bullshit.
I think this is after they found him and they took him back to take pictures and show, he was probably
fuck
showing him
off.
what he was doing the whole
They've
time.
redressed him. This is
Let's see a
horseshit.
look right here.
Yeah, they redressed him.
After
They
3
redressed
years.
him in rags.
yeah,
what he looked like
for
when
the
they found him.
photos.
That's what he looked like when
That's
they
a little
found
better.
him? Yeah, that looks like a guy living in the woods. Wow. Rat head. He was eating rat heads. What does it say? His son was killed? What does it
I'm
say?
not sure.
One day his wife and two of his sons were killed by a mine explosion, putting him in a state of shock. He took his 2-year-old son and fled into the jungle, thereafter never having any contact with anyone else. The pair survived by foraging fruit and cassava from the forest and planting corn. They wore loincloths made of tree bark and lived in a timber hut raised 5 meters above the ground. So cassava is not the stuff that you need to boil and filter and strain.
No.
What am I thinking of? That's the other
probably
stuff.
taro root.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, cassava is like a potato, basically.
Right,
Yeah.
right. What is the one that like actually has strychnine in it? It's very common in the jungle of Central America and South America.
I think taro is what you're referring to because it's very starchy and basically inedible until you boil it down.
Is that what it is?
I think so. That doesn't sound familiar.
It doesn't sound right. Taro, I know what taro is. But taro, like they make taro chips.
Yeah.
Like you could eat taro chips.
But
This stuff they boil down, they turn it into like a meal.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Like smash it and do all kinds I thought it was cassava.
Everything, like when we've worked down in the Amazon and stuff in the remote areas of the Amazon, everything's boiled. That's just how everything's like. Day 1, you're like, oh man, this fresh boiled piranha is so good. Day 13, you're like, please God, no boiled piranha for breakfast.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting we've gotten to this point as a society where we eat what we enjoy
Right.
instead
Not
of
what's
like what just keeps you alive.
right.
I was with Steve Ranella once, and he caught a beaver, and we cooked the beaver. And one of the things that he cooked was the beaver tail. And he said that it was a staple amongst trappers.
Okay.
That they really like beaver tail because it was a good concentration of fat. It was a great source
I
of
imagine
fat.
it's just a big fatty
It's
tissue.
disgusting.
Yeah, I bet.
But when you're dying of fat, like you need fat,
Right.
like you're starving,
Right.
like fat is literally what you crave, then it becomes delicious.
Sure.
Like, then it's not a matter of, oh, I prefer fried chicken. Well,
Right.
I'm a pizza
Right.
guy myself. It's not. We eat based on our flavor preferences.
It is interesting because taste is so elemental to what we decide to do every single day. Oh, I like this, I like that. But that's not the point of food.
Right.
The point of food is nourishment, right? It's to keep your body strong and you continue to have energy. And yet we just we've completely abandoned that notion. In fact, so much so that we have the opposite problem where we're over-nourishing, at least with fats and oils and things like that constantly.
Yeah, if people could come from the past, back from those pioneer days, and see people today, they'd be like, "Oh my God, this is wild!"
They probably think it was
everyone's
great.
fat.
They probably because that was like a sign of being healthy back then and wealthy, right? You could afford to be fat. They'd be like, "Wow, this is great."
Well, I don't know about healthy, but it was
No.
definitely a sign of wealth, and the fact that you didn't have to work. And so, when you look at those paintings from the Renaissance of those Rubenesque women, that was attractive. We were psyched if you found a big fat lady.
Yeah, big old gal.
Yeah, that girl, she's eating good. That's what I like.
That's what I needed.
I don't like some skinny farmer lady. I like some royal lady who gets to just have fruit given to her while she lays down.
Last time we hung out, you were doing pure carnivore.
Yeah, I'm
How
doing
was
that
that
now.
You're doing it now?
Yeah, because it's January.
Oh.
January is World Carnivore Month. I don't know who fucking made that up, but yeah.
Why not?
I mixed in a little fruit. I eat fruit because I find when I don't do that, and I did straight carnivore for the first few days, I think the first 8 or 9 days, but it was, it's hard. I was slogging through workouts.
Just no energy?
Yeah. Just and they say there's an adjustment period, just like keto. They call it have you ever done a keto diet?
Not for more than a week at a time.
It takes a while to really get your body to turn ketogenic and to start burning fat instead of carbohydrates. And it's there's a thing they call the keto flu, where it feels almost like you got the flu. Where you're
sounds awful.
Not really like the flu. It's a bad way of describing it. It's more like you're not well rested.
Gotcha.
So when I would work out, I would have to really push through these workouts. You feel like you're missing a gear. That's what it feels
Just
like.
none of that extra ATP to burn. Yeah.
You can't get into fourth gear. It's weird. It's it doesn't feel good.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying, but when I added fruit, that goes away.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah. After we hung out and you were doing that, I read Paul Saladino's book, The Carnivore Code, I think it's called, A Carnivore Diet, the one where he eats meat, fruit, and honey and bases it, because he's been on your show before, right? Yeah, so I read his book, and I thought it was really interesting, the whole idea of those are the most sought after foods in the world. And they are for most cultures, but definitely not all cultures, right? Which I think is
It all depends on what the resources are, right?
Of course.
Yeah, if you're dealing with a culture that has access to an enormous amount of rice, an enormous amount of, or cassava, or whatever those things are, there's different things that people eat where they just eat it because of convenience.
That's availability and cost and effort, right?
But if you have access to all the food and you really wanted to live an optimal lifestyle, I do think that organs are primary. It's eating liver and eating heart is very, very good for you. And then eating red meat, especially lean red meat, is very good for you.
It's all about Lucky Charms. I saw your post.
Isn't that nuts?
That was wild.
Isn't that nuts that that's a real NIH-funded food chart that places Lucky Charms above eggs?
There were so many things, too, not just the Lucky... that was preposterous, but there were so many things that
Chocolate-covered almonds.
Right. That's healthier than a steak.
Off. That's candy.
Exactly.
That's literally chocolate. Yeah, there's almonds, but it's fucking chocolate, which is sugar and some cacao.
Yeah. That was wild.
Straight horse shit. These people are criminals.
Yeah.
They're all being paid off. They've all been paid off by these big food corporations.
By the big food, industries.
For sure. Well, it's been proven that there's been a bunch of these people that are fat doctors that are trying to tell you that there are no junk foods, and it's really
I haven't heard
shaming people. Yeah, big fat ladies that are saying this. The same kind of ones that don't want you using the term fat.
Sure.
But they're being paid off by these companies that make fucking ho-hos,
Oreos, and blah,
cookies
blah, blah.
and shit.
Sure.
Yeah, that kind of food, not maybe not those in specific, but those kinds of foods where they're readily available at supermarkets. In general, other than rice, and some beans and some other stuff that you get in the center of the grocery store. All the shit around the edges is what you want. You want the stuff that's fresh. You want the stuff like the vegetables, like they have to they've replaced them all the time.
Yeah.
That shit in the boxes in the middle, most of that stuff's not good for you.
Of course.
Unless it's canned or bottled. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, there's tomato sauces and stuff that's in the center that's fine for you.
Still packed with sugar, though, right?
Some of them.
Yeah.
I mean, there's organic ones that
Yeah.
aren't. But the outside, that's what you want.
Yep.
You want where the milk is, where's the cheese, where's the eggs.
Sure.
It's on the outside. It's refrigerated.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a reason you have to eat it fresh.
Yeah, you got to eat it quick.
Right.
And it's really like a lot of the stuff, like especially like pasteurized and homogenized milk. There's a real good argument that that's not even good because your body's like, what is this weird liquid protein stuff?
Mm-hmm.
This is not where's the enzymes that are supposed to be available in raw milk?
So what's your feeling on like a protein shake? Like you're doing this carnivore thing, you're obviously getting tons of protein. You're not doing a protein shake as well, are you?
No, it's not necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're eating meat, most of what I'm eating is meat and eggs.
Sure.
That's mostly what I'm eating.
That's a dream diet, really.
But the thing is, I feel great.
Yeah.
My mind, I'm very clear-headed, and I have a lot of energy. It's like every time I do it, every January, I'm like, God, why don't I eat this way all the time? The problem is I'm a glutton.
Yeah.
And I really love pasta, and I really love cheeseburgers, and I really love pizza. I fucking love pizza, man.
Yeah.
Woo! I love bread.
Yeah.
It tastes great, but
I love bread.
it's definitely not my thing in terms of like what my body responds to the best. My body responds the best to fruit and meat and eggs and organ meats and that's really and fish.
Yeah.
My body responds the best when I eat that stuff. And when I eat that stuff, my body's like, yeah, great, this is awesome. Like I can eat a steak and then go right on stage. And not have a problem
and you feel
at all.
fine. You feel good.
But if I eat a bowl of spaghetti and go on stage, I'm fucking...
You're a drip. Yeah, for sure.
I eat a whole pizza and go on stage. I'm so dumb. It's like it takes away like 30% of my mind capacity.
Clarity, yeah. So let me ask you this, and if you've covered this kind of stuff before, by all means, we can skip over it. Do you get more aggressive when you're on the carnivore diet?
I think you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why?
Well, you think
Why do you
about
ask that?
carnivores worldwide, right?
Yeah.
Taking humans out of the equation, just pure carnivores, lions, wolves, so on and so forth. There's definitely a correlation between the need to eat meat and the drive for eating meat, right? And that drive comes from aggression, right?
Yeah.
That's why they're fighting. That's why they're in competition. That's why they're at the top of the food chain, right? So this is a personal theory that's grounded in nothing, but I would think when you're eating nothing but meat, which is going to spike your testosterone, it's going to make you feel and act more like a carnivore and less like an omnivore, right? And be more aggressive and be more dominant. I don't know. I mean, again, you've had people on the show far more qualified, but it's just thinking as a biologist who's studied carnivores, you see that aggression comes from a place of it's cyclical.
Yeah.
The food makes them aggressive. The aggression makes them acquire food.
Yeah, I noticed that the first time I did it. The
Yeah.
first time I did it, the very first carnivore month, I noticed I was like, God, I feel a little aggro. But I also wonder because that was when I went very strict carnivore, and I was having a really hard time working out.
Yeah.
Like my workouts were pretty diminished, and I think maybe I wasn't exerting enough energy.
Interesting.
Because my body's very accustomed to working out really hard almost every day.
Sure.
So it's like I feel like if you just maintain, like if you get your body to a point where it's accustomed to like exertion, especially explosive exertion, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, kettlebells, like that kind of thing. My body's very accustomed to that.
Sure.
And so when I backed off of it, I wonder if that is what was responsible.
Because you had this pent up.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Interesting.
And then I think on top of that, there's the only eating meat thing. And then I also think maybe it's not that gets you aggressive, but that the bread and the pasta sedates you.
That's probably more accurate.
Probably more accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I think that's probably it.
I feel like crap, and I'm not strict on diet like you are or anything, but if I eat a big bowl of pasta or half a pizza, same thing. You just feel like I'm going to go sit on the couch. Like, I'm not going to do anything.
It makes a difference. And anybody who says it doesn't is in denial. You just really like bread and pasta.
Which is understandable because it's delicious.
It's the best.
Yeah.
I fucking love it, man. But I just limit it to treats, and I know that I'm going to get wrecked. I almost feel like it's like me going out and getting drunk.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like to do that very often, but when I do it, like, let's go.
Full send. Eat a cake.
Yeah.
Eat a whole cake.
Eat a whole cake.
Good for you, man.
But
That's great.
if I have to choose between cake and pasta, I go pasta every time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, sweets are okay.
Yeah.
Sweets are okay, but like I'll have a small bowl of ice cream and it doesn't seem to affect me very much. I don't think it's the sugar, and sugar clearly does affect me, but I think the big effect is the bread.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I don't think my body likes that. And in fact, my daughters have legitimate gluten sensitivities. They have
really?
allergies. Yeah, like they've gone to allergists to get tested, and one of my daughters is allergic to basically like all kinds of stuff. She's allergic to dogs and cats and horses.
You have a dog, don't you?
Yeah, but he's washed.
Gotcha.
He's clean all the time, and they're used to him.
Yeah.
Because he's, and we had dogs before him. Like, they've always had dogs.
So they've grown up with it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't develop an immunity over time?
I think it does.
Okay.
It does.
I would think so.
But cats didn't.
Yeah.
The cat thing is rough with them.
Yeah.
Like, their grandmother has cats in her house, and when we go over there, like, they don't react very well.
Huh.
Yeah. Cats, like that cat dander.
Yeah.
Thing is, you can't wash a cat.
Right. Yeah, they don't scratch you to shit.
When
yeah.
I wash my dog, like, he likes it. He's
Yeah.
like getting a massage. He's like, oh yeah, man, rub my back.
So-
But cats like, wow. They'll try to fuck you up. You try to wash them in a sink. Some cats you can though. Some cats are calm.
I have no allergies to a house cat that I've ever experienced. Rub a cat in my face, whatever, right? We don't have a cat, but I've just never been allergic to one. If I'm around big cats, lions, lions, tigers, not that I've been that close to tigers, but with lions, like hands-on and stuff, I am dripping my nose, my eyes, everything. So I don't know what the divide is there, but yeah, I definitely have a major allergy to big cats.
My daughter has a major allergy to horses, to the point where we were in Italy and we got a ride on one of those horse-driven carriages in Rome. And we're like, this would be fun, get driven around it. And my daughter's eyes started swelling. And then we realized, like, she's having a reaction to the horse. And it's up there. It's just being downwind of this horse. Outside. The
Crazy.
Just,
that sensitive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, very sensitive. So we got off the thing and we had to get to a pharmacy and find some, like, Benadryl or some shit. Whatever their Italian equivalent is.
Benadryl.
Yeah.
Can I tell you a funny allergy reaction story?
Sure.
So we're working in the Amazon 2019, and we got this camera guy. His name's Johnny, right? We call him Boogie. He's got these big old knees. He always wears cargo shorts. Ridiculous looking guy.
He's got big knees?
He's all knees because he's like got long legs, a tall guy. Anyway, we love Johnny. But no, and so I love Johnny. And we're working in this area that has these parasitic wasps. And these wasps, these wasps are attracted to our headlights because we're working at night. We're doing crocodile work. And so every night we're getting zapped like in the neck and in the face, like one or two, whatever. My one cameraman, Mitch, he has like a pretty bad reaction, like puffy eyes, has to get the EpiPen, everything, right? We're hanging out at camp like one of the mornings after everything, getting stung up every night, it blows, whatever, but it's not the end of the world. And we hear Johnny, our camera guy, hops out of his hammock and he goes, "Oh shit!" And we're like, look, and he's dancing around like holding his junk, right?
No.
And we're like, you got stung. One of these parasitic wasps flew up his shorts and got him on the tip, right on the head. It gets so much better, Joe.
Oh no, it planted something in there?
No, not quite. But so he's dancing around, he's howling about his dick, and we're laughing our asses off and making fun of him, right? As you do with a group of guys in the jungle on a field expedition. And we have this medic named Josh. He's like the calmest, quietest, he's like your typical like military medic. Like he's never going to like get upset or excited because it just makes everybody get upset and excited, right? And Johnny, after a couple hours, he goes to Josh and he's like, "Hey man, like, can you take a look at this?" And we're all like, we're in camp watching this go down, and we're like, yeah, we gotta like just keep an eye on what happens. And Johnny goes around, like sort of around the trees, and Josh is with him. He pulls his pants down. We can't see anything. We just see Josh's back. And Josh goes, "Oh shit!" Like this is coming from the medic, and so we just like burst into laughter. And we're like, "We got to see this thing, Johnny. What is it? Like we got to see it, dude." Joe, it looked like a baby's arm holding an apple. Like it was just, the head was the size of a softball. And it's
that big? It was that big?
So big. And Johnny was like, "What am I gonna do? Like my penis is never gonna work again."
Oh my God.
And we're like 2 days from anything. And so anyway, the medic treated it. He gave it a shot, whatever. But just,
did it work?
Yeah,
the shot worked?
It did. Johnny said it took like 3 weeks for it to come down all the way.
Oh.
But it went down the majority of it.
I wonder if
that
he jerked
night.
off during during those 3 weeks.
I'm certain he did. Yeah.
Oh my God! Imagine,
Dude, I've never seen anything like it.
imagine if like when you nutted, you screamed in pain. Because you're stupid enough.
I just heard of it. I shouldn't have heard the story, and I shouldn't bring it up.
You should.
Yeah, definitely bring it up.
It was like it said it was a 12-year-old boy shoved a thermometer down the hole while he was masturbating, and it got
You're
stuck.
right, Jamie. You should not have brought
So they
that
had to
up.
go and do a keyhole surgery to get it out because it would have fucked up the organs
Oh
or
my
something
God!
crazy.
Oh my God! You dummy! What kind of crazy kid is that? What's he gonna go?
It's just
What's
like-
he gonna be
Too
like
much
when he's
was, like,
30?
Too much is involved in the story.
He's 12. He's stuck in thermometers in his dick hole.
Dude, while we're on the dick hole conversation, do you know about the Candiru?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know how they have to get it out?
No.
Okay, so for those that don't know,
Just so you know, I didn't make it up.
Chinese boy, 12, shoved the thermometer down his. Look at it, like how they write thermometer in all capital letters. Down his penis, needs it surgically removed from his bladder after pushing it too far.
dude,
Oh, Jesus!
He dealt with it for 9 hours.
But look at this. Boy opted to insert the object into. He opted.
Opted.
He opted.
As opposed
It's just
to-
like, choosing your insurance policy. He opted to insert the object into his urethra. A risky practice. It's risky. It's
Yeah.
called sounding. It's got a name, so it's so common. People are so crazy that they're just been stuffing stuff up their dick so many
I
times they
hate
came
the
up with a
stuffing.
name for it. When it got stuck, he endured agonizing pain for 9 hours before seeking help. Chinese medics extracted the tool by cutting a tiny surgical hole in his bladder. Yikes.
It definitely didn't come from any app. I'm sure that idea.
Ugh.
I'm sure you didn't get the idea from an app.
From an app?
Yeah.
Why
Where would a
from an app?
12-year-old? Where would a 12-year-old get an idea like that?
Oh, like TikTok?
He's saying
Oh,
it's a
yeah,
TikTok
sure.
thing.
You
Yeah.
You think so?
I'm not saying that.
We probably just go. Well, their TikTok is very regulated.
I've never used it.
You're right. We're just talking out of
How
our
do you know?
ass. It's a good point. Very good point.
Candiru.
Yeah.
So
So
it's-
you should explain what it is. It swims
Sure.
up your dick hole.
So it's this tiny parasitic catfish in the Amazon, and what it does is it's attracted to urea, which comes out of fish's
Yeah.
gills, and it's a parasite, so it swims into fish's gills and lodges its spines into those fish's gills to feed. But this nasty little bugger, because it's attracted to urea, will swim up your urethra. Now that's all fine and well, if you will, but it has reversed facing spines. So once it swims in, there's no swimming back out. The same spines it uses to lodge into fish gills. No, that's a lamprey. That's nonsense. But once it's lodged in, the only way to get it out is to butterfly and lift it out.
Oh, God.
I'm not even going to say it. But
How
that's,
often does that happen?
I don't think it's very regular, but yeah. I can tell you when I'm in the Amazon, I'm like peeing back and forth just because I'm scared something will like swim up the stream.
Yeah, when you pee, like, are these people peeing with pants on?
I think
like,
so,
do they
yeah.
wearing shorts
Board
and it still
shorts or-
swims up the legs and gets in there?
I mean, I think it's just incredibly unlucky, but it's happened a lot more than once. It's a a relatively regular thing.
Oh, is that an operation?
Oh, look at that Reddit picture. That's not
Oh,
real. That's not
Jesus.
real, but that's
Fake, but this one is probably. It says it's
Oh
on
my
its leg, not.
God,
in anything.
get out
This
of
one-
here. Oh, get out of here. I don't want to see this.
yeah. It's a fun show.
Yeah, everything's trying to kill you.
Everything.
Everything's trying to kill you. But I go into the forest with a peaceful intention. I am your friend. I'm here to wander.
Please-
Do not eat
Please,
me.
fish, don't swim up into my urinary tract.
Plus, I only eat vegetables, so they know that I'm in harmony. Well, so does a deer, bitch. The deer only eat vegetables, too. They fuck them up.
She's going to be listening to this podcast and be very upset.
She does not listen to my podcast. I will guarantee you that. She's a nice lady, though.
Yeah.
She's just kind of wacko. But
Yeah.
a lot of them yoga people are wacko.
Yeah.
It's like something about like that path, the path to Satnam, the path is,
The self-enlightenment.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yep. I live in Santa Barbara. Trust me. I know.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of them up there. A lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
rich ladies. Mm-hmm. They try to find meaning after the kids leave the house.
Yeah.
And they
Yep.
really get into yoga.
Right. Or into their yoga instructor sometimes.
Yeah, they get, oh, there was a yoga instructor that I knew that was doing that. He was banging all these ladies.
Yeah.
He was like so cheesy. Like I couldn't believe it worked.
Like the ponytail and
yeah,
like the whole
he didn't
thing.
have the ponytail, but he was like, He would like sing yoga songs in class, but he was like really into himself. It was like,
Yikes.
you know, people just like give off a vibe. Like,
Yeah.
hey, bro.
Yeah, that's.
You know, like almost like a televangelisty vibe. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure he'd be a great cult leader.
Yeah, no, not really.
No.
It'd be, only for dummies.
Yeah.
It
Well,
wouldn't work. You got to like to be a really good cult leader. Like I think it's like a balancing act.
well, you have to trick everybody
Yes.
into your thing, right? Which
Right.
takes some smarts for sure. Yeah.
There's a lot of them out there, though.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to be that good to be a cult leader.
No?
Like you could be pretty shitty at it.
How do you find your followers?
That's a good question. I
That's-
think you start off being a self-help guru.
Oh, that makes sense.
Self-help guru,
Yep.
and then you eventually move people into some sort of a communal situation.
Yep.
Like, we don't need society, man.
We can do it better.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'll be your leader. And then he's banging everybody's wife. And
Everybody.
then he wants all your money. And
Doesn't sound terrible.
it does if you're the guy whose wife is getting
Yeah.
banged. Like,
Yeah.
honey,
Yeah.
what? I thought we were just going to be peaceful out here, living off the land. Well, you know, he wants to bless me
Again on
with his
Tuesday.
sex.
Yeah.
Parasitic wasps freak me out, and there's a shitload of them.
There's so many.
There's so many species of parasitic wasps.
Yeah.
That's what's really fascinating. Like, and not only just parasitic in terms of like entering humans, but also they like inject their larvae into plants and
Mm-hmm.
logs and shit.
And can manipulate certain spiders, like the brain process,
Yes.
and like tarantula wasps, which we
Yeah.
have in the States, are incredible. You know, they can come down, lay eggs into a tarantula that manipulates the behavior of the tarantula, something about the chemicals in the brain chemistry, and then the eggs hatch out of the thing.
I thought it kills the tarantula
It
first.
does. No, not first. Eventually.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was confused. Well, I know. I think I'm thinking of something else.
I might be mixing them up with another one too. There's so many. But
Yeah,
yeah.
There are some. I read there's like 100. There's like 100 different like parasitic wasps.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Nuts. Like it's what a weird thing that like nature has invented this creature that shoves its babies
Yeah.
into some other creature's body with a needle.
Yep. Yep.
Look at this. So this is the
This is a tarantula hawk going after a tarantula.
Yeah,
It's
and
also
it's-
parasitic.
stinging it from the bottom. Yeah, that's
I mean, I've never seen a tarantula stand up like that.
yeah. He's like
Getting
jacked.
slow.
Away.
Yep.
He's like, oh boy, I'm confused. So look how it like crawls on its back
Isn't
and
that
then
crazy?
jabs it in the body. That's what's nuts. Like look how it reaches up.
Yeah.
Oh, I think he's dead.
I think you're right. It does.
I
It
think
does
kills
kill
him.
that. Oh, you're
Wasps
right.
will leave a single egg inside the spider's belly once it's paralyzed. What a fucking nutty situation.
It's changing the oil.
Yeah. Well, there's so many of them, and then there's even more bizarre shit.
See that?
Oh,
When the egg hatches.
the wasp larva will eat the spider from the inside out. Yikes!
So I
And
mean,
then there's even weirder shit, which is fungus.
yes.
Like fungus that like
I saw that for the first time recently in India.
Really?
Yeah, I was finding these hollowed out, I forget, like exoskeletons of mantises and all kinds of beetles that had mushrooms growing out of their heads, like
Ooh,
weird
cordyceps.
cordyceps. Yeah, and it was, you know, I only know about it what I've read about it and seen. I've never.
Oh.
It's not something I've been very deeply involved in, but the idea that a mushroom can manipulate the brain chemistry
Yeah.
of a living creature. It's unbelievable.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Not only does it manipulate it, but when they hatch, when the spores explode to infect all the other bugs around them.
Right, in like
which
a
is crazy.
vast area too,
Yeah.
and it's all transmitted by air. So they just have to like be around, and then it's like, oh, now I got a mushroom growing out my brain.
And what's also wild is that ants realize this is happening, so they will drag an infected ant far away from their colony.
Oh, I didn't
so
know
that
that.
it explodes on its own.
That's fascinating.
Yeah,
I didn't know
yeah,
that.
they figured it out. Like how do ants fucking communicate? Because
Dude.
like if you see like leafcutter ants, which I have
Yeah.
in my neighborhood, leafcutter ants colonies
Yeah.
that they have underground, where there are
Incredible.
these sophisticated
Yep.
systems of ventilation, and
Yep.
they're literally fermenting leaves down there. It's like what?
I know.
How do you know? How are you doing this? How are you building a village?
And like like just recently I saw this thing where these ants made a rope to cross this like
Yes,
big.
I
Did you
saw
see that?
that.
The little
It's
dangly
incredible.
rope. It's incredible.
They
yeah.
linked arms.
Yeah, they
someone's
literally-
gonna drown. Someone has to go down.
They have
If
to.
you think about that when they let go,
Yeah.
like some shit. It's not like everyone's not gonna make it.
But they don't. But that's what's so amazing about things like ants and bees is that hive mind. They don't all have to make it.
Right.
And that's
Right.
like, it's for the greater good of the hive. And like,
Yeah, here it is.
yeah, this is the same exact
This
one.
is fucking bonkers, man. Army ants build a bridge to invade wasp nest.
Yeah, look at that. And see the eggs? They're carrying the wasp eggs out of the nest.
Oh my god, what a bunch of creeps.
We were, I do a
Jesus
podcast
Christ,
called
look at
The Wild Times, and we were looking at this on the Wild Times podcast, and everybody that commented was like, there's a rope in the middle of that. That's not real.
But
There's
it's not.
no rope. No,
There's no
look,
rope.
you can see right through it.
That's what's crazy.
Yeah.
Is that it's just all
That is
ants.
just bodies. That is just ant bodies working in this hive mind to figure out how collectively to accomplish a task as one unit. It's
Why'd they make such a
unbelievable.
long rope? That's pretty stupid. I guess they probably had to swing over there.
I don't know.
Like,
Yeah.
How did they swing over there?
Right. How is it connected?
Right.
Yeah.
How are they doing that?
I don't know.
How did they swing? Imagine how fucking strong the ants at the very top that are hanging onto the board,
Holding the whole.
holding a
yeah.
giant rope of ants.
Yeah.
That
look
are
at
all
that.
a bunch of egg
You
stealers.
can see right through it. Look at that. It's
It is
unbelievable.
nuts.
Yeah.
It's really nuts. What a crazy organism.
Yeah. It's
And the
it's
fact that
fascinating.
they're the biomass of ants, I think the biomass of ants on Earth is equal to the biomass of humans.
Oh, really? I thought it was
Yeah.
actually more. I thought
Really?
there was more biomass of ants than there are of human beings.
Wow, is
Yeah.
that true? Let's find out that. It's pretty impressive enough with 8 billion fatso humans.
Correct.
that
And these little bitty
tiny
things. Yeah.
weigh as much as us.
I-
If they weigh more, that's even crazier.
I used to work on a
See what
project.
that number is.
Hold on, I'm trying to understand it. It says the ant biomass is around 20% of human biomass, or the mass of carbon from nearly 8 billion humans now living. So I don't understand what it's saying.
Massive
Carbon.
So I don't know why I brought that up. The
does
ant
it say-
biomass also weighs around 12 megatons, which is about the equivalent of 2 pyramids of Giza on a scale.
Wow.
Huh. That's cool.
That's two pyramids of ants.
This other thing says ants make 2/3 of all the insects.
Really? So it's only 20% of the
There you go.
biomass, human biomass. Oh,
I was totally wrong.
sounds better when you say as much.
Yeah,
or
let's go
bigger.
back to the other
Let's
way.
go back
Yeah.
to it. Even 20% when you see how fucking little they are.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, what are they, like 1/1,000,000th of a human?
If that, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they weigh nothing. I used to work at the California Channel Islands in front of Santa Barbara where I live, and one of the projects that I worked on for way too long was ant eradication. So they were trying to restore the Channel Islands back to, before human settlement and really just rewild them and keep them pristine. And the most difficult species to remove, hands down, were the Argentinian ants. So all over California, we have these invasive Argentine ants, and they, on one boat or another, they'd made it over to the islands. And it's just like, how do you remove that? It's easy to remove pigs or sheep or whatever from an
Right.
island because it's a closed off area. But trying to remove millions of ants, I mean, it's massively difficult.
The Channel Islands, I think the Channel Islands, used to be a big bow hunting destination.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because they used to have a bunch of different species that someone had brought over there at one point in time, like elk and deer, and
Yep.
and they killed them all, like from a helicopter.
So there was elk on Santa Rosa, and then Santa Cruz, which is the biggest one, had sheep and pigs. I think goats as well back in the day. And then, even Catalina still has bison. And for a while, they opened
they're
up.
like farmed, right? They're not
Yeah,
wild.
they're not
right?
wild. I mean, they're like semi-wild, right? They just reproduce, but it's all very managed. But for a while, they opened up like tag hunting, like come out and get your elk and get your pig.
Yeah.
But then eventually the state just said like we got to do something about it. And this was kind of interesting. The pigs on Santa Cruz Island. Have you heard about the Judas Goat? Do you know what that is?
Yes.
Yeah. So they did.
Explain that.
Yeah, the Judas Goat is what happens when you can't.
They did it in Galapagos, right?
I think
Isn't that
so.
where they
I
first
think
did
that
it?
might be where it started. But the Judas Goat is a process in which, say, you're trying to eradicate goats from an island. Well, the goats wake up. They get aware that there's a helicopter buzzing overhead and somebody's shooting them, and they all start scattering and getting scared, and it becomes harder and harder to get the last 10%. So 10% of the work is eradicating 90% of the animals, and then 90% of the work is getting the last 10% of the animals. So they do this thing called a Judas Goat, where they go and catch a goat, put a collar on it, and then let the goat go, and the goat finds its friends 100% of the time, and they mow down all of the other animals and leave the Judas goat, who then pops over to the next group of goats. So you're a real shitty friend if you're the Judas goat.
Or you're just dumb as shit and you're being manipulated by people.
True.
I think they castrate them too.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, so the Channel Islands, they got rid of all the sheep, got rid of the goats, if there were goats, I'm not sure, turkey, a few other things, but they couldn't get rid of the pigs. And so they brought in hunters for a while. They opened it up. Pig guys came and shot them. And then they tried to get guys like, I think actually from here, from Texas, to come and fly and shoot the pigs and stuff. And the Channel Islands, Santa Cruz Island in particular, is so canyonous and difficult. They're having a really hard time. And for whatever reason, they brought in these helicopter pilots from New Zealand who fly the fjords down there. And I was lucky enough to work on some of these projects. So I was actually in those helicopters going through these slot canyons and stuff. It was really cool. I wasn't doing any pig shooting. I was going in for ants, like I said, and weeds and some other stuff. And and the helicopter pilots and shooters from New Zealand were the ones who managed to take out the final pigs on Santa Cruz.
Pigs can have 3 litters a year.
Yeah.
That's what's nuts.
Well, we have, 6 million pigs in the United States now? They came from 11.
Is that real?
Yeah.
Wow.
11 pigs that were dropped off in the Florida, I think mainland Florida, maybe the Keys, but 11 pigs is what they believe.
And that was by the Spaniards, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Nuts.
Isn't that crazy?
I mean, that's crazy, but maybe it's even crazier the fact that they brought smallpox as well and killed 90% of the Native Americans.
Yeah, that's
nuts.
That's a little worse.
Yeah. When you tell people that, because most people are aware there was a genocide of Native Americans.
Sure.
But most people are not aware that most of it was due to disease.
Right.
When I had explained that to someone, that it was 90% of the people were killed by smallpox, they were like, what?
And it was purposely introduced disease, correct?
I don't believe so.
Oh, it just came with people?
Yeah, it just came with people.
Interesting.
I mean, I don't think they really understood how to introduce diseases back then. Like idea that they thought that you could have it on a blanket. And
Yeah.
I don't think that's true. I think
interesting.
Let's find that out. I believe that myth has been busted. But they know now that that's what killed off the Mayans.
Yeah.
Like, because there was always this big mystery. Like, where'd the Mayans go?
Where did these people
They
go?
had this incredible civilization, so complex.
Yeah.
And mimicked the cosmos and their architecture. There's no evidence that the scheme worked.
Oh, this is regarding the blanket.
Infection of the blankets was apparently old, so no one could catch smallpox from the blankets. Besides, the Indians just had smallpox. Smallpox had reached Fort Pitt and had come from Indians, and anyone susceptible to smallpox had already had it. Yeah, I think it was just a thing that people had, and they brought it over, and then it killed everybody. It also killed everybody in the Amazon.
And people here in the Americas had no tolerance to it, right? Because they hadn't evolved alongside the disease, which had evolved over thousands of years or millions of years. Yeah.
They had no natural immunity to it.
Right.
And then that's also what they believe was responsible for decimating the Amazon. Like, they think the Amazon had millions of people.
The Incans and the Mayans and all those things.
All those people.
I didn't realize that. That's really interesting. Yeah.
The really wild stuff that's being done in the Amazon is LIDAR.
I know.
Where they're finding all this evidence of these ancient structures that were just overcome by the jungle.
Have you seen the Honduran lost city of the monkey god?
Yes.
So great.
Yeah.
There's a legit full civilization in Honduras, like a bustling city that they found in LIDAR 2 or 3 years ago, using LIDAR 2 or 3 years ago.
Just empty.
Empty.
Gone.
But like a full scale city, not like a village or a town, like tens of thousands. Yeah, look at that.
Fucking wild.
Yeah.
But it totally makes sense, man. If you bring in smallpox, I mean, smallpox kills like 90% of the people that get it.
Right.
So it just fucking decimated the populations of these places where these European settlers made through. That's the whole story behind the lost city of Z, you know.
I knew that the city went away and Percy went to look for it with his son and his son's friend, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't realize that the idea that smallpox had wiped it out was the reason behind it.
Well, the theory behind it is, and all sorts of diseases, not just smallpox, but that when the Europeans first came through and they first reported about these immense cities...
They were there.
Yeah, they were there.
Yeah.
And so then when people came back like 100 years later, they're like, this is bullshit.
Right.
Because the jungle would just overcome everything.
And it can in so little time.
So little time.
It's crazy. The rate of growth, when the jungle's left alone is unbelievable.
And then there's the weirdness that the jungle itself is actually man-made.
Whoa, hold on. I don't know about this.
You didn't know that?
No, tell me.
Yes. Most of the plants that are overwhelming the rainforest are from agriculture.
from ancient civilizations.
Yeah, I think it's like the ice cream bean tree and a bunch of other different trees. But these trees were all trees that had been grown. Yes, it is actually man-made. One of thousands of earthworks built by remarkable but little-known ancient societies. The Amazon, prior to the arrival of Europeans in the Americas in 1492, is commonly depicted as a pristine wilderness dotted with small, simple communities.
Wow.
The Amazon rainforest created. Click on that one. The supposedly pristine, untouched Amazon rainforest was actually shaped by humans. Over thousands of years, native people played a strong role in molding the ecology of this vast wilderness. So these trees that overwhelm the rainforest, they were planted.
They're cultivated.
Yeah, and then they just run amok.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're just really fertile, and the ground. They had developed this type. Was it called terra preta? Terra preta, is that what it's called? They had developed a very specific type of soil that they actually, it's a
yes,
soil that
I know
actually,
about this.
yeah.
And we've been unable to replicate it.
Exactly.
Yes,
yeah.
I do know a bit about that. Yeah. But I guess the
Terra
difference...
preta, yeah.
Terra
that's
preta.
it.
But I guess the difference being those were all native plants, right? So while the Amazon may have been cultivated by different tribes in the Amazon, they're not getting those plants or trees from anywhere but the immediate surrounding area, right? I mean, maybe not immediate, but within the South Americas,
I'm not exactly sure.
right? Because it's not like they're importing olives from Spain, right? Like they're using the resources.
Yeah, I don't think they're saying they're invasive. I'm just thinking they're cultivated.
But that's fascinating.
Yeah,
because
it's amazing.
You certainly don't think of that. And you don't think of, at least in today's world, I don't think of the Amazon as being populous. I mean, I'm not talking about Manaus and cities.
Yeah,
I'm talking about
right.
the wild Amazon. You don't think of civilizations being able to impact that much vastness.
Graham Hancock thinks there was 20 million people living in it.
20 million?
Yeah.
Wow. That's
He
unbelievable.
thinks it is a vast society
Wow.
that was filled with human beings and structures, and this is all being like they have only used LiDAR in a very small percentage of the Amazon. Of
course, yeah.
And they're showing all sorts of structures
Wow.
and irrigation systems and grids that indicate cities and blocks. It's wild stuff, man.
I mean, it sort of makes sense in the sense of the abundance of resources down there, right? It's easy to grow a population when you
Right.
have so much natural resources. Everything that you plant grows. There's another side of that argument that I've heard paleontologists make, where like when things are too easy, people don't evolve, right? That's a different side of that coin. But if you think about it from like a logical standpoint of when things are easy, it's easy to increase your population. And, when you're not fighting for survival every day because there's coconuts and palm trees and blah, 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 it's easy to reproduce and have more kids and grow a society.
Yeah.
Versus when you're spending half of your life just trying to get by.
That's an interesting argument that when things are easy that people don't grow or evolve. That seems weird to me because it would seem to me that once your resources were taken care of, once you have food and shelter, you have more time to think. So you have more time
Right.
to make life convenient, more time to sell goods that would be valuable to people, more time to improve and innovate on those goods.
But the argument is when things are too easy, you don't push the status quo. So because there are so many abundant resources, you have no need to develop tools and technologies that advance society. So the argument, I don't remember the scientist that said this, is basically if you look along the band of the equator, those are at this time, and this is an older publication, I believe, those were the least developed societies in the world. As you get further away from the equator, up into the not the Arctic, but like up into Scandinavia and so on and so forth, you get more and more advanced civilizations. Because when there's a hard winter coming or it's just harder to survive, even though there's abundant resources, you need to adapt and overcome and develop in order to prepare for that winter, in order to prepare for a famine time period versus when it's all just available to you at any time.
The reason why that doesn't make any sense is Egypt.
Sure. Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense because that's the absolutely most sophisticated culture pre what we understand of history.
Yeah, true. But not on the equator. It is quite far from the equator.
It is far from the equator,
Yeah.
but it's also like very lush.
Very.
Like the Nile Valley, they think, 9,000 plus years ago was like extremely lush.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why they were able to reach this high level of sophistication.
Sure.
Because they had access to resources.
Which aligns with the idea that the Amazon had the same things.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, by the way. I think that if you have an abundance of food and resources, you have a better ability to create.
Yeah, that's what that makes more sense to me, but I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think
Correct.
both things could exist.
I agree.
Like you could have it too easy, or you could have it to the point where there's plenty of food to hunt and gather, and you see no need to move out of the hunter-gatherer stage.
Sure.
But then you could also see like super sophisticated societies that lived in that area, like they think the Amazon was.
Right.
That they would innovate.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
then
it makes
also
sense.
you have a large population. Even if it's a small percentage of people innovating, it's gonna impact the great number of people.
If you have enough people, there's
Yeah.
going to be people that are creating, right?
Yeah.
There's no way there aren't.
Yeah, and then people came through there with their coughed on everybody and fucking killed them off.
And that's that.
This
Yeah.
is really wild, man. It's really wild if that is true. That how horrific that is, that they just basically reset everybody back to the Stone Age.
And if you think about, has that happened before and will it happen again?
Yeah.
You know, I remember distinctly thinking, well, at first, I think I might have told you this story. When COVID hit, I was in Indonesia and I was like, this is stupid. It's like bird flu. It'll all be over in 10 days. And boy, was I wrong.
Yeah.
But I remember shortly after that distinctly thinking like this might be the beginning of the collapse, right? Like this could be where human population collapses. Like this is the plague that the planet has been waiting for. This is this generation of smallpox, but it obviously science and medicine overcame that at too fast of a rate, and it really wasn't that lethal. But
Well, it wasn't. It was the fact that it wasn't lethal.
Right,
Even if
right,
science and medicine didn't do anything, it wasn't going to kill everybody
true,
off.
true. But I remember thinking, because there was a lot of hysteria around
Yes.
it. You know, I remember thinking maybe this is it. But I
Yeah,
guess
me
my
too.
point being, do you think that that's going to happen again?
It certainly could.
Yeah.
I mean, it has before. It probably will again. I mean, I was scared of it too. In March of 2020, I
Yep.
thought, oh my God, it's going down.
Right.
When they were shutting the country down. I was
Totally.
like, Jesus Christ, we're living in a movie.
Everything,
Yeah,
right? You couldn't go into a
yeah.
hospital. You couldn't like visit a grocery. Like everything. It felt like the whole world was collapsing.
The problem is there was an irresponsible level of fear that was promoted by
Agreed.
the media because the media has an interest in getting you to pay attention to what they're saying. And that
Right.
irresponsible level of fear, the problem with that is like even if they know what they're doing, they know that it's propaganda, people get sucked in.
Right.
And then they get scared forever. And if you don't ever give them good data and you're always exaggerating the threat and exaggerating the death number and Dr. Lena Wen, who was like the biggest proponent of, shut everything down, shame the unvaccinated, cast them out of society, all that. Now she's saying that she had a recent article where she said they overestimated the amount of people that actually died from COVID. And I think she said the real number is about 30% of what they're claiming.
Oh, you're kidding. Oh, wow.
Because when you die of COVID, if you also have cancer, if you're dying of something else, but you test positive for COVID, they call it a COVID
They
death.
call it a COVID death.
Yes.
I remember reading that.
Like
Yeah.
even accidents and even people that because there was a financial incentive,
Yeah.
which is part of the problem. Dr. Lena Wen slammed after admitted there's been an overcounting of COVID deaths 2.5 years late. Wen claimed the actual COVID-19 death could be only 30% of what's currently reported. There's also been, I don't know how the system exactly works, but there's been doctors that explained what incentive there is to put someone on a ventilator, what incentive there is to prescribe remdesivir.
Because it's all financial decisions,
Exactly.
right? Yeah.
Because of the emergency use authorization,
Yeah.
because of the pandemic, there's all these. And when you have money involved, things get fucking squirrely.
Always.
They get real weird. And
Always.
And then I didn't realize, I'm so ignorant. I didn't know that most hospitals, or a large number of hospitals, are privately owned. They're
Yeah.
businesses.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah. You're like, wait a minute.
I thought
where's this money
hospitals
coming from?
Something
Yeah.
that the government funds so that we
Right.
all take care of each other.
Not
Nope.
here. Not in this
Nope.
country.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
And then
I-
you have the fact that pharmaceutical companies are responsible for 75% of the ads on television.
Really?
Yes.
75%?
75% of the ads on television. We're one of two countries on earth that allows pharmaceutical companies to advertise.
I had no idea.
The other one is New Zealand, and they're far more restrictive than we are.
And yeah,
So you
you're-
have so much
so much
financial
incentive.
and then we lost people in terms of like losing their mind and their anxiety that never came back.
Yeah.
Like I just saw an article today about how I think it's time to mask up at award shows again.
Oh, really?
Yeah, see if you can find that. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's a cold.
Right.
It's basically gotten down to a cold
To the
now.
point, it's become so benign to human beings.
If you're that vulnerable, you shouldn't be going to the award show.
in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're
Right.
not healthy, like,
Right.
and also,
Right. Just
throughout
make
this-
smart choices, right? Protect yourself. Stay back. Like,
and there's still,
Yeah.
after all these years, still no like encouraging people to take vitamin D, no encouraging people to lose weight, no encouraging people to take care of their overall metabolic health so that they'll have a more robust immune system and they can survive these
Right.
things. No,
Right. Nope.
nothing. No,
Almost the opposite. I would
Yeah.
say junk food's more prevalent than ever and pushing, that whole. I mean,
Yeah.
fucking Lucky Charms, right?
Yeah, the Lucky Charms thing. It might be time to mask up at award show. It might be time to stop your fucking award shows. How about that? Nobody likes them. You guys like them. We don't even like them. We watch them because there's nothing else on. The kind of people that really like award shows, they wish they were there. I
Yeah,
wish
that makes sense.
was getting that award.
I don't think. Do they even televise them anymore? I
Some
don't
of
even
them.
see them anymore.
I mean, they tell us the Oscars.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember when that was like a big thing. Like you sit around and watch the Oscars. Like I don't think
Yeah.
I even heard the last time there was an Oscars.
Yeah. You heard when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock.
I did see that.
That's it.
Yeah, I did see that.
That was the last fucking dying breath of the Oscars, I think.
Yeah.
I can't be so
interesting.
about that stuff. Wear a mask. They don't work. That's the other thing. It's the other thing Lena Wen said. The cloth masks are essentially facial coverings. Like, she didn't say that at the beginning of the pandemic, but she said it recently.
Interesting.
On CNN, they're like,
oh, they must have been very upset.
what?
Yeah.
Well, I think she's realizing that her reputation is at stake.
I see.
And she's got to actually report real facts.
Yeah.
And so that, like, and also the writing on the wall. Like, when we're looking back at this from 5 years from now or 10 years from now, we're looking at adverse reactions and we're looking at all these different things and what we did to kids, how we stunted their development
Right.
by masking everybody and keeping them at home. The whole thing's nuts. And it was a very mild pandemic in terms of like the Spanish
what it could have
flu
been.
and the
Right.
Black Plague
Right.
and the horrific pandemics of the past.
Right.
Yeah.
Very true. One of my best friends sadly passed away during COVID in a rock climbing accident. Not from COVID, but when he went to the hospital, he was climbing in Utah, fell without his helmet, and did his skull in, and it was terrible. Tommy Dutra, he was one of my best friends, amazing guy, incredible athlete. Anyway, he went to the hospital, and his dad called all of us, right, all of his close friends and his family and everything else. Nobody was allowed in the hospital. His own parents had to say goodbye to him over Zoom when they pulled the plug.
Oh, God.
All of it. And it was right during the height of it all. And because he was getting out and climbing and doing something active during the pandemic, when everybody else was sitting inside, his own fault for not wearing his helmet, so on and so forth. But terrible tragedy. But just imagine not being able to say goodbye to your son in that situation because of that whole heightened, like we were talking about the heightened fear thing, right? The heightened
The thing is,
hysteria.
like, if it wasn't even COVID positive, it doesn't even make sense.
But they weren't allowed in the hospital.
Oh.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
So, I mean, there's two tragedies simultaneously, right? The big one's that he died hitting his head.
Of
rock
course.
climbing.
Of
Oof.
course. Yeah.
What a way to go. Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, poor guy.
God.
But he died doing what he loved, though. He was an incredible climber and was very passionate about it. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I talked to Gabor Mate about that, who's an expert in addictions and trauma. And he thinks that people that are drawn to like free solo climbing, like the Alex Honnold's types of the world,
The addiction of the adrenaline. Yeah.
He's like, there's something wrong with the way they developed.
Sure.
And they're muted. And like maybe because of so much persistent trauma when they were young,
Oh,
that
interesting.
they need some. I forget exactly how he described it, but that this is a reaction to trauma, like youthful trauma.
So they're putting themselves in trauma's way or harm's way to compensate for something that's happened historically.
They're putting themselves in trauma's way because that's the only way they feel things.
Yeah. I mean,
Or that's the only way they feel alive. Like they get this. I don't know how you feel what someone else feels.
Right.
Like, how would you
How do you
really
answer
know?
that? Yeah, right. I mean, I can sort of understand that in a sense of like, I'm not an adrenaline junkie. Like, I don't go for skydives or, any of that stuff. It doesn't drive me. but that thrill and rush I get of, darting a bear or working with a lion or doing, swimming with an anaconda, like that fuels me for weeks. Like I get getting goosebumps thinking about some of them right now because I get so excited by, and it's not just for a personal rush, but rather, we're doing it for work or whatever. But those moments stick with me forever. And I sort of get that, but not like I'm just going to risk my life over this climb or whatever, So
what are
it's
your
sort
thoughts
of different.
on giant anacondas? Like, because there's
Oh, boy.
always been this thing about enormous anacondas that live in the rainforest.
So, yeah, there's fascinating. So I love anacondas. I believe, and I've got a colleague, Brian Fry, in Australia, actually, and he has a similar belief that there are 30-foot anacondas. Now, 30 is a big anaconda, but you're talking about those mysterious, like 50, 100-footers.
Yeah.
Okay, so take out the Amazon and take out anacondas for a second.
Okay.
All right? Think about where all the largest snakes are in the world. Okay?
Florida.
Well, now, yes, but we've got all these wet tropical environments that house these huge snakes. In Indonesia, you have reticulated pythons, you have Burmese pythons, you have African rock pythons, Indian rock pythons, anacondas, all these big snakes.
Yeah.
The only place that has a wet, tropical, humid, high density of prey environment that doesn't have a massive snake is the Congo, Central Africa. Now,
Interesting.
stay with me. That area is home to some African rock python stuff, but not big monster anaconda size ones, right? But during World War II, there was a colonel who flew over there, and this was a well-respected colonel. I'm sure, Jamie, you'll be able to find this very quickly. A well-respected, I forget, he had his wings or his patch of honor or whatever, very distinguished, who him and his 2 passengers in the plane both reported a 100-foot-long snake. They flew over it once. They were like, wait a minute, what is that? They were Dutch Belgium in the Congo. They flew over it once, went, what is that? And flew over it 2 more times to verify it and got so low to the ground that they said the snake struck at the airplane. And all 3 people, the pilot, this well-respected colonel, and the 2 passengers had the exact same story of this giant snake in Central Africa.
Interesting.
Yeah, and yet no big snake has ever been proven from there. But it's also a very poorly biologically explored area. And most of the time, when these animals get this big, snakes or otherwise, they're in very low... Yeah, here's the picture.
They took a photo of it?
They did. Yeah, they did. They're in very low densities. So, that's the real photo over on the left there.
What did they think it was?
They thought it was a giant snake, a 50-foot long...
So that's the photo right there?
I believe so. But the story's fascinating of these colonels.
But they don't know what kind of snake. They don't know if it was an anaconda or a python or...
It would be an undescribed species because the only snake there, the African rock python, doesn't get that big.
What is the biggest snake that we know? Oh, it says it measured approximately 50 feet in length, saw brown-green with a white belly, has a triangle-shaped jaw and a head 3 by 2 feet. Oh, my God. A 3-foot head. The photo was later analyzed and verified to be genuine. Van Leerd claims that... Is that how you say his name?
I'm not sure, but that was the colonel, Remy Van Leerd.
As he flew lower for a closer inspection, the snake rose up approximately 10 feet, giving a warning that it would have attacked a helicopter if it had been within striking range.
But imagine flying over and having a snake sort of lunge at a helicopter.
Imagine a 3-foot snake head. Jesus Christ.
Jamie, do you mind going to my Instagram
Literally
quickly?
swallow you alive,
Dude,
easily.
look at this one. I posted a picture day before yesterday. This is 18 feet, and look at the size of it compared to me and how scary this snake is. Now, to think of, like you said, you're like an M&M to a snake that
You're
size.
a Tic Tac.
Yeah.
One of them chocolate-covered almonds that are so good for you.
Yeah.
Whoa, look at the size of that thing.
That's an 18-footer. And look at how,
God.
Granted, it's not 3 foot by 2 foot head, but still, that thing,
What's the weight on something like that?
It was over 200. It broke our scale.
Wow.
Yeah, it was over 200 pounds.
Wow. Indonesian villagers claim to have captured a python that is almost 49 feet long and weighs nearly 990 pounds.
I've seen this. It's not
Snake?
it's not verified at all.
Do they have an image of it?
This might be the one that's on the tractor. No, it's not. There's a fake one on a tractor that
It's fake?
floated around. Well, it's just very forced perspective. It's like a wide angle lens and the snake is right in front, but it looks massive.
But this is NBC. This is NBC News. Let's see if it has images, this sucker.
So these are all like retics, and there are big snakes out there.
Look at the size of that goddamn thing.
Yeah.
Jesus. So, what is the biggest snake? Is it a python? The biggest snake that we know of?
So the heaviest is the reticulated python.
Look at the size of that thing.
Yeah.
How big is that?
That's big. It's probably 20-ish. So there's quite a lot of 20-foot snakes out there. And then there's a couple 21, 22s, but that's it. And so there's all these rumors of 30-foot snakes and 40-foot snakes and blah, blah, blah. And there's nothing that's been verified outside of one skin, I believe, I want to say from Indonesia, that is but skin stretch. That's the other thing, too.
It turns out to be a tall tail. It says when Recreation Park in Indonesia put a huge reticulated python on show last week, keepers insisted to reporters it was 49 feet long, make it the longest ever caught, but the find turned out to be a tall tail.
Yeah.
So how big was it exactly?
I bet it was 20-ish. 21, there it is.
Yeah. 21 feet. Still fucking crazy.
It's a big snake, man.
But not 50.
Not 50.
I have no idea why the snake has shrunk, said one keeper when asked about the discrepancy as the snake lounged on a tree branch inside the cave. But things
anxiety.
do shrivel up when you catch them.
Yeah.
Like fish do. Like when you
The
catch
animals?
a fish. Yeah.
Well, definitely when you tell people about it, but
That's when you show people.
yeah.
Yeah.
I went fishing
would
here in Austin
dehydrate.
this morning.
Oh, did you really?
Right
Where?
downtown, literally right in front of the Google building.
Lady
We were
Bird
pulling
Lake?
Lady Bird Lake.
Yeah,
pulling
there's a lot of
out.
bass out there.
It was awesome,
yeah,
man.
it's a great little spot.
Yeah, really fun.
Right in front of the Google building. That's
Right
funny.
in front of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the biggest in the world is the python, right? So they are bigger than anacondas?
So it's sort of a toss-up. The reticulated python has been clocked as the heaviest snake in the world because they get fatter, but the anacondas have been clocked in slightly longer. I think 26 feet is the longest ever recorded.
Did you ever see the
verified.
Jennifer Lopez movie, Anaconda?
The documentary? Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
It's such a corny movie,
It's
man.
so good. The bad snake head if you watch it
it's so
today.
bad.
It's so bad.
It's so bad. But that was always the rumor, is that there was enormous snakes in the Amazon,
Yeah.
and that you just didn't see them.
I do believe that there are some megafauna out there that are yet to be found, that are in low populations.
Like you believe in the sloth, the giant sloth.
I believe that has
Yeah.
and again, that's like the thylacine. It's a proven animal. It's been 10,000 years, but it doesn't mean that it couldn't be extant in certain remote areas. Same with some of these big snakes. Maybe not 50, because maybe these things are embellished, but maybe 30, maybe 35, right? And I just think that there are a few, not a lot, of these big things out there. If you're one of these uncontacted Amazonian tribes, of which there are still several, West Papuan tribes, whatever, and you're seeing a 50-foot snake, nobody in the Western world, we're not hearing about that.
Right.
Like those things can be happening and those stories get embellished and passed on and all of that, but we wouldn't even know until Western science gets in there. And it's sort of a double-edged sword, because once it does, it sort of ruins certain aspects of that, right? So, but I do believe that there are big animals to be found still.
And the sloth one, I watched a documentary on it once. It was this guy who was risking his reputation. He was a biologist, and he had spent months in the Amazon. He was very frustrated.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't find anything, and they kept saying, "We saw it, we saw
Yeah.
it," and he's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Where?"
I know that feeling well, and it's very frustrating because, I've even had people tell me they've eaten the thing that I'm looking for.
Really?
Yeah, when we were doing Extinct, looking for the extinct animals, of which we had success quite a lot, but I've had guys be like, "Oh, yeah, they're delicious." I'm like,
What?
well, tell me where to find it. You've eaten it, and you have no reason to lie about this whatsoever. Please just help me.
What was this that they had said?
That
they'd
was
eaten?
regarding that caiman. Remember that yellow caiman?
Yeah.
And we did find them, so that worked out. But literally, I remember we're walking through the village in day one before we even get in the canoes, and I'm showing people these pictures of all the different species of caiman, and I kept pointing to the Trompa largo amarillo, the long-nosed yellow one, right? And everybobody's like, yes, no, maybe, one time. And then one guy's like, oh, those are delicious. And I'm like, oh, God, can we put this on Animal Planet? I don't even know. Can you say that this thing is delicious?
Endangered species that you're eating. Well, there was always these rumors of these places where these billionaires would fly into in China and eat gorilla.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
have you ever heard of that kind
Oh,
of
yeah,
stuff?
I've heard about it. I believe it, too.
Do you?
I really do, yeah. I think that especially, you say, like, especially with China, where the Eastern medicine and the status symbol of eating tiger whiskers and this, that, and the other thing.
There's a status symbol of eating something that's forbidden and very difficult to acquire.
Exactly. And, China has so many billionaires now. I forget what it is, but dozens and dozens of them, right? Like, if that status symbol is important to someone with that much power and money, how are you not getting it?
Yeah, what a weird culture where your status is based on eating something that's endangered.
It doesn't even click in my head. Like, I cannot physically understand it. Like, no part of me is like, oh, I get that. Like, I really want to eat some tiger whiskers.
Have we ever talked about the Bondo ape?
Yes, you have. Yeah, I know you like the Bondo ape a lot. Yeah. Big lion-killing apes, right?
Well, this is a big chimpanzee that lives in the Congo, which is... The Congo is so incredible. It's like, God, what an insanely rich, resource-ridden place that's also a war zone.
And being absolutely raped and pillaged by, big corporations in the Western world for resources and minerals. And
I had Siddharth Kara on, who his book comes out. Does it come out next week? It comes out the end of January.
Okay.
But his book is all about cobalt mining in the Congo.
Interesting.
And it's horrifying.
I do want to read it. Yeah.
Horrifying. 19-year-old girls with babies on their back who are hand chipping cobalt out of the ground and then inhaling all these toxic fumes and powder, this dust, and then that is in your cell phone.
Right.
That's how the cobalt gets into your fucking cell phone.
That's at your Apple store.
Nuts.
It's the new blood diamond, right? It's the new... And it's funny because I feel like the whole blood diamond thing and, there's been lots of these things, but it all sort of went away because it got exposed. But I feel like no one's talking about the inhumane things that are taking place for our modern conveniences. It's one thing when it's a luxury, like a blood diamond, right? Or whatever. But when it's like, oh, well, I can't live without my iPhone, then it's like we're willing to turn a blind eye to it. It's like people choose not to accept it because it's part of their life.
Just think about how many people who consider themselves social justice warriors, and they do this complaining on a phone that's made by slaves.
Totally. Yeah.
So
they're literally tweeting or texting or whatever their complaints on a thing that is contributing to the thing they're complaining about.
The contributing to the worst version of it in humanity right now.
Isn't it crazy?
It's really crazy. I mean, it's like literally human trafficking.
So in the book, does he actually go into the Congo and witness this? And
he took video footage. He came on. His story is so compelling.
Oh, I must listen to it.
It's so and he talks about it with such passion because he worked on this for years and years and risked his life to obtain footage and to get access and to go to these what they're supposedly ethical mines. And he's like, this is all horrible. It goes, all of it is tainted. All the cobalt that we have, all of it is at least in some part coming from these what they would call, I mean, it's basically just the most primitive version, people in flip-flops with hammers chipping it out of the ground.
What's extreme poverty?
Yes.
Right? And
it's more like slavery.
It is.
Calling it extreme poverty, I think, is not quite accurate enough. They call them artisanal mines, which is like hilarious because it's like
anytime you slap that word onto anything, it's fun.
Oh,
right?
It's artisanal.
Yeah.
Oh, great. I think someone's making pottery somewhere.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But, so back to the Bondo ape.
Sure.
Is that because I know there was some controversy behind that, and there's some people that sort of denied its existence, but then Carl Armand got photographs of them, and they obtained skulls that were a chimpanzee skull that had a crest.
Enlarged. Yeah.
But they also had a crest, like the same way that a gorilla does.
My understanding, and this is not something I'm super familiar with, but there's no denying that they existed. Right? There was this insular gigantism that took place within this group of chimpanzees. There was heightened aggression. That's all like known and documented. But it wasn't a new species. It wasn't a distinct species. It was sexual or rather natural selection that led to these animals being different and isolated and turning into larger, more aggressive chimpanzees. That's my understanding of it.
But would that also make their skulls different?
It can do,
Because oddly enough, we have a skull.
Yeah,
of a
it's very cool.
chimpanzee. This is made by Shane Against the Machine, who's a guy on Instagram who's an incredible artist.
Cool.
He's made a couple of pieces for the podcast studio.
Oh,
but
rad.
The difference is with this skull versus what they think the Bondo ape skull is, that the Bondo ape has like a bone mohawk
Right
down
through
the
here.
center.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a gorilla does.
Sure. So, sexual selection over time can evolve for anything, can adapt for anything, right? That's why peacocks have the silly tail they have. It doesn't help them fly, right? It's only sexual selection. It's being bred for. So you get a bunch of chimps stuck on an island, stuck in a region, and the females decide for whatever reason that a bump on the head is sexy. Okay? Now, every chimp that has a slight bump on its head is being selected for by the females to reproduce offspring. Fast forward 15, 20 generations, maybe 200 generations, whatever, they all have a crest on their head. That is how evolution begins. Because now you fast forward millions of years and the sexual selection has been selected for over and over and over and over, and you're starting to turn into a new creature, a new organism altogether.
If I'm not, I don't think I'm incorrect here. I think the crest indicates enormous mandible muscles.
Because the muscles attach up there.
Yeah, I think
Makes
that's
sense.
what the crest is for.
Yeah.
Because that's how it is with dogs.
Sure.
Like, have you ever noticed the difference between a dog that's castrated and a dog that's not fixed?
In
One of the
temperament,
things-
sure.
The size of their heads.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Like, my dog is a golden retriever,
Yeah.
the sweetest dog in the world.
Yeah.
But he has a pretty big head.
Yeah.
And it's the muscles in his head are big.
Sure.
Like on the sides of his head, because he has his testosterone.
Sure.
Whereas we met this other golden retriever that was fixed, and he has this narrow little tiny head.
Sure.
And it's because he doesn't have any muscles.
So that's the difference of sexual selection, like the peacock or what I explained,
Mm-hmm.
and natural selection. So if these Bondo apes are only eating, and I'm just making this up, and I know the theories of them killing lions and everything, but if they're only eating coconuts, let's say, right?
And they have to tear them apart.
They have to rip through a coconut with strong jaws.
Right.
Well, if you got weak jaws or weak jaw muscles or weak mandibles, whatever, you're
Right.
going to die.
Right.
So over time, again, the only ones that are surviving are the ones that have this ridge on their head that are naturally being selected for stronger muscles.
Yeah.
So it's
they
a
just think
different
it's
mechanism.
like a subspecies of chimp?
That's my understanding of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I had thought. That
Yeah.
They don't think it's a different chimp, but they do think it's different in terms of its size and temperament.
And we see that all the time, right? We see
Right.
insular dwarfism where things are stuck on an island and they get smaller and
Sure.
smaller because of the
Yeah.
lack of resources, or gigantism for the opposite reason. Like, we see that all the time within species.
Or people that live in Iceland. Enormous, giant fucking people
Big
used
dudes.
to be Vikings.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know how
And
many world strongman champions have come from Iceland?
no, all of them.
Shitload of
Yeah.
them. They're all like that guy, the mountain from Game of
I
Thrones.
was just going to ask you, is he from Iceland? He's from somewhere up there.
I think he is.
Yeah.
Is he from Iceland? Well, his name is from Iceland.
Thor.
It's like Thor Hafhorsson.
Exactly. Yeah.
Try saying his fucking name. But I mean, that part of the world has produced an exorbitant number. Look at the size of that fucker.
Yeah.
Iceland.
Look
Yeah.
at that name, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Look
Julius
at that name.
Bjornenson?
I mean,
Bjornson?
first of all, they're not even using real letters.
No.
What's that thing after the F?
I have no
in his
idea.
name? That's like a half a P, a half a B.
A Bjorblor.
Half Thor. Oh, it's literally transliterated as half Thor in English. Yeah.
Crazy. That's a different species. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. That's a different species right there.
Exactly. Look at the size of that fucker.
Look at that guy.
How big is that fucker?
Was he 6'9" or something? But then his weight is astronomical.
What?
Is he more
What
than
does
that?
it say his height?
6'8". I see it there.
Okay,
203
6'8".
centimeters.
Which, like, Shaquille O'Neal's looking
Oh, no,
down on that
6'9".
dude going, come on, bitch.
Yeah.
He's 7'1".
230. He's got to be more than that now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's nonsense.
Nonsense. No, that's not true at all.
Each of
Maybe
his
when he played
quads
basketball,
weighs
he was
that.
big.
Oh, maybe when he was 16. Even then.
Yeah, it's when he started basketball. He started at 230. That's
Oh, he's got it. Well, I think he
308.
got really heavy.
6'9",
20.
But then he
463,
he
there it
slimmed
was.
463. Okay, but then he slimmed down to have a boxing match. He had a boxing match with Eddie Hall.
Did he win?
Yeah, he won.
Did he?
He actually looked really good.
Yeah?
It showed really good technique, too. Like,
Huh.
it wasn't like winging punches. He was like fighting like a boxer.
I mean,
Like, trained for a long time for it.
I cannot imagine taking a hit from a guy like that.
Oh, my
no
God.
matter who
Can
you are.
Imagine the
Yeah.
size of his fucking mitts.
The momentum,
Yeah.
like coming into that.
Yeah, just the sheer gravity behind each punch. Boom. But it is fascinating how people in that part of the world, I mean, they were the Vikings.
Yeah.
That's why they're so fucking giant.
That's where they've come from.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So I wanted to talk to you about this cloning and the rewilding of the mammoths and all of that
Yes,
stuff. I'm
yes.
going to Colossal tomorrow to learn a little bit more about
Explain
it myself.
Colossal.
Yeah, so Colossal Biosciences is this, if you ask me, incredible company, and they are, by their own declaration, a de-extinction company. So it's this guy, Ben Lamb, and he's got George Church, who's a world-leading cellular scientist. I don't know the specifics, of de-extinction and cloning and CRISPR and so on and so forth. And they've come together and raised a ton of money, and they are de-extincting animals. And the science is there. Like, it's done. All it took was the money, basically, behind it. And they've put together this incredible Rolodex of scientists and people, and it's real-life Jurassic Park with purpose.
Where are they going to put them?
So there's a couple different things going on. So the first one they're working on is the woolly mammoth, right? And this isn't just for fun. This has real, like, important conservation implications, which is really fascinating. But they are planning on starting with, I think, 100 mammoths and putting them in this place called not Pleistocene Park, something like that. This park in Siberia. That they've been doing this experiment on as to what happens when you add megafauna back into the Arctic tundra to offset carbon emissions.
Wow. And so they're using what DNA? They're using elephant DNA and mixing it with something else?
So it's Indian elephant is the closest living relative to the woolly mammoth.
And what does an Indian elephant look like? Is it similar to an elephant?
Yeah, it's a smaller. So African elephants are bigger. They have the really big ears.
Right.
Indian elephants are typically the ones you'd see at the circus, with the pink in the ears, the smaller triangular shaped ears. So just a different species of elephant. And so they're taking Indian elephants and they're using CRISPR technology and they're using existing mammoth DNA and they're making an embryo and then they're implanting it into the Indian elephant, and 22 months later, an Indian elephant's gestation period, she will give birth to a mammoth.
A real mammoth.
A real mammoth.
So it's not like a hybrid?
That's okay. That's a good point. So it is, in the sense of what they do is if you imagine the DNA of an animal, right? And then you imagine the fragments that are broken out of it, right? What they're doing is they're taking that DNA and I don't understand the cellular side of it very well. This is just my base level understanding of it. I can talk about the conservation side of it, but they're taking that double helix, that DNA, and all those pieces that are missing from the mammoth, they're putting in Indian elephant pieces. So you end up with an animal that is physically and morphologically identical to a mammoth, but has used all of the DNA from the closest living relatives in order to get there.
Phew. Boy. And this process, how long does this take?
So I think they've been going for about 5 years on the science, but the science of de-extinction and cloning, I mean, you remember Dolly the sheep, right? That was like a known thing. So that's been going on for a long time.
Well, you can get your cat cloned.
Exactly.
Or your dog cloned.
Exactly. For like 20 grand, you can clone your dog. Yeah. So
It's kind of creepy.
It is. It's bizarre. But the point is the science has been there for a while. There just hasn't really been the funding or the motivation for it. But what I think so fascinating, the reason I'm so like emotionally invested in it, is the conservation implications that it has. Because what this company is ultimately doing is rewilding species that humans have removed, and that's going to, in theory, in a lot of places, sort of fix the offset, the imbalance of the ecosystem.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. There's a lot of debate about whether or not humans killed off the woolly mammoth, though, isn't there?
I think there is. Yeah, I think there is. And I can't really speak on that, but I do know that when the mammoths disappeared, so the Arctic used to be like the savannas of Africa. It used to be big grasslands, right? It wasn't all covered in trees and things. And that's a recent adaptation since the mammoths went away 10, 20,000 years ago. And so that's what's happened is the permafrost up there is melting pretty rapidly, right? Underneath that permafrost is like 1.5 trillion tons of carbon. And once that carbon enters the atmosphere, it heats things up like crazy. So by removing those mammoths, and I can explain why the mammoths keep it colder, but by removing those mammoths, it's allowing that permafrost to melt much quicker and release more carbon. So the idea from like a financial standpoint of how they make money is the carbon offset of putting mammoths back into the environment.
How do they make it colder?
So it's a couple different things. It's basically when there's trees and shrubs, they take in more heat, and that heat transfers into the ground. So in this Pleistocene park, this park that they've been doing this experiment in Siberia for a while, they've put in a couple hundred animals that aren't mammoths, right? They've put in ox and reindeer and things like that, and they're knocking trees over with the tractors. And once they knock trees over and they simulate a mammoth knocking the trees and shrubs over, the fleet grazers are able to keep the vegetation from regrowing. So when the vegetation doesn't regrow, you get all this grassland, and the grassland has snowpack. The snowpack gets stumped, so there's no insulation. It reflects more light. It's like 3 or 4 different processes that make the ground, I think on average, it's like 8 degrees colder. So it keeps things more frozen. So once we removed all the megafauna from the Arctic through hunting or maybe other means, regardless, once they were removed, the Arctic got warmer. The Siberia and Alaska got warmer, and so slowly we're getting more and more carbon emissions from up there. But by putting these animals back, and I just love the idea of going up to the Arctic and it looking like the African savanna, right, with all of these incredible animals. But by putting these animals back, it in theory will make the Arctic colder, slow down the melting of the permafrost, which will in turn trap the carbon for longer in the ground.
So they're going to start with the woolly mammoth.
Yeah.
And what other animals are they thinking about doing this to?
So what I know of right now is the woolly mammoth and the thylacine, which is another reason I'm so excited.
So they are going to bring back the thylacine.
Yeah.
And how are they going to do that?
So there's, it used to be the quoll, but now it's an animal called a dunnart that's the closest living relative. And so, thylacines were around pretty recently, right? I mean, we're just looking at video of one.
Yeah.
So they have really good DNA from the thylacine, and then they're going to use the existing DNA from a dunnart, which is a very small marsupial, put them together, remake the thylacine. The only problem is, my understanding is, they cannot use the dunnart for surrogacy because the dunnarts are like this big. So they have to do an artificial womb and all of that. But yeah, I think the technology is there.
Artificial womb?
Yeah.
This sounds like a fucking horror movie.
Isn't it crazy we're living in this time?
Yeah, it sounds like a horror movie.
But it's so insane. Like, even 3 years ago, if you're like, hey, we're bringing animals back, we're going to put mammoths back in the Arctic, you're like, shut up. Like, go put on your tinfoil hat. Like, it's happening. It's
when
so
are they
crazy.
projecting the first woolly mammoth will be launched?
2024.
What?
Yeah.
Next year?
Next year. End of next year.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
And they're going to bring it to Siberia.
And put it in this Pleistocene park where there are all these other animals, and they're going to see how it does. Like, how does it behave? How does it interact with the environment? Does it replace the tractors in the sense of cooling down this little park area? Yeah. It'll be fascinating.
Are they going to do saber-toothed tigers?
I hope so. No, I don't know.
Shit,
I don't know.
That would be incredible. What a wild animal those must have been to look at.
Saber-tooths?
Giant teeth.
Yeah.
Like literally hang out of their mouth. And apparently are so sensitive that they could find jugulars. Like
with those teeth?
Yeah. They could feel the pulsating jugular with their teeth.
Just because of the nerve endings in it? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Homotherium, right? That's what that genus was called. I don't know. Yeah, and that stuff, like, that's the fun Jurassic Park side of it, right? Like, would I like to see a saber-toothed cat? Yes, who wouldn't?
Yeah.
But the idea that, like, hey, 10 years from now, there's going to be several thousand thylacine back in Tasmania. Facial tumor disease is going to go away. The overabundance of prey is going to disappear.
Facial tumor disease?
Facial tumor disease is a thing that a lot of the animals, and particularly the Tasmanian devils, have in Tasmania. It's herpes on the face. But it comes from an overabundance of prey because the alpha predator, the thylacine, has been knocked out. So if you go drive down a road, look at it, poor bastards. It's bad. It's herpes.
God.
It's actual herpes.
Oh my God, it's horrible.
It's horrible.
And that's the Tasmanian tiger, which is
the Tasmanian devil.
Tasmanian devil. What a crazy little animal that fucker is.
They're so cool, man.
And the noises they make.
Yeah, they're wild.
See if you can find a recording of Tasmanian devil noises.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm just excited because it's like,
it is crazy.
It seems like we live in an alternate universe where these things are real now, which is just so crazy compared to a few years ago.
What does it here we go. Look at those little fuckers. They're going mouth to mouth with each other.
If you're camping in Tasmania, which I've done for thylacine searches and stuff, and you hear that, it is the most like blood-curdling, terrifying, and then they're this big. But you hear this and you're like, something is going to rip me to shreds. And it's just
like
these
a French
little buggers.
bulldog.
Yeah, look at them.
Yeah. They're real cute.
Really cute.
Does anybody ever have them as pets? I wonder if you can domesticate them.
I don't know. But my number one pet's a wombat. Have you ever seen a pet wombat?
No, they have them?
Oh my God, dude.
People have them as pets?
I mean, in Australia, like as rescues and stuff. I don't know. I don't know if they're in the pet trade, but I went to a place in South Australia.
Oh,
they're
look at that guy. Devil. Oh, look, he's a little puppy. They're adorable.
They are.
So do people, but this is like little tiny babies. Like I wonder what it's maybe it's like some animals, like you get to a certain age, you can't really keep them anymore.
I wouldn't think they'd make very good pets. I went to a place in Tasmania where they dragged a wallaby carcass in that had been hit by the road. It was like the cartoon version of piranhas, where they come in and it's like, and they rip it to shreds. These things ripped this dead wallaby to nothing. It was like maybe 10 of them in under a minute.
Really?
Just to nothing, to just bones and gnawing. It was wild to see.
Most people think of the Tasmanian devil as that cartoon. That's literally if people think about that, it's one of the only animals where the cartoon is more popular than the actual animal.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
Like I couldn't pick that animal out of a lineup. If you told me, I mean,
what is this?
now I can because I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
But look at these little. Let me hear some volume.
Wow.
They only weigh about 7 kilos.
Gotta love Australians.
Yeah.
There's also wombat ears, too.
Little cutie. That's a wombat ear.
Look. This is what I'm talking about.
That's a wombat.
Yeah, that's a
cutie.
juvenile one, but they're just little trucks.
Little cutie.
I love wombats. I think they're so adorable.
And so people keep those as pets as adults?
Yes, they do. There was a woman I met who had one in her house. Man, we had this video on our little podcast that I don't know how to find it, but it was hilarious. And this woman hand-raised this wombat, and it ran around her house like your dog does. But the thing is, it's like this truck. They're like super low to the ground, huge shoulders. And like if it decided to run like through the dog gate or through the refrigerator, it just went like bowling straight through it. It was amazing.
Cute little guys.
Oh, I think they're so cute. But these guys have unbelievable mange in Tasmania. Like, Jamie, if you type in, wombat mange, we've looked at a lot of gross animal stuff today, but it's like, it's brutal. And the reason the mange is so bad, there's no predators and they're way overpopulated. And so when there's that many animals in a small environment with overpopulation, they get diseases. And so,
oh, look. Ugh.
Yeah. So all this is potentially fixable, if you put a predator, the right predator back in Tasmania.
Right. And so that would help Tasmania. And are they
Look at the
planning
second
on
one
doing
down.
this to other continents? Oh, that's terrible.
That's what they look like, though.
Oh,
that
God.
image you saw for a split second there, that's what they, not all, but that's what a ton of them look like in Tasmania with this rampant mange.
Well, that's the chupacabra.
Straight up.
The chupacabra is a coyote
mangy
that has
coyote.
horrible mange.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they've captured them. Like people, we call it chupacabra.
And it's sitting in a cage, all
It's just
terrified. The
fucked
eyes
up.
are swollen
Yeah.
shut, and
Yeah, it's just a fucked up coyote.
Yep.
The North American mammals, like, are they planning on eventually doing that North American mammals as well and reintroducing some?
I'm not sure. Well, the mammoth would be in Alaska, so that's North America.
They are gonna do it in Alaska.
Siberia all the way to Alaska. So that mammoth steppe environment, those grasslands, used to range from Spain all the way to North America, like all across the Bering Land Bridge, and all that ice was like trampled and blah blah blah. All these savanna lands that are now big forests.
Are you aware of the Alaskan boneyard? Did you watch that?
I heard pieces of it because a couple people texted me about it, but I need to listen to the whole show. I mean, John sounds like a fascinating guy.
He's the best.
Yeah.
But his place that he has in Alaska, like they've been on, and it's not a big area where he's finding this stuff.
Yeah.
He's got 2 areas, and one of them that he's been getting bones, what he calls boning, this one area for decades, is only 6 acres.
That's all it is?
Dude, it's nuts. The concentration, so that's what it looks like. It's like the side of a cliff, and they blast it with water until they see things, and then they pull out these bones. But they've found animals that were not supposed to be there.
I remember he said that. Yeah. He said, like, I believe So scimitar cats were the cat that was native to that continent, to Alaska, right? Not saber-tooth. Saber-tooth's big teeth, scimitar is like a smaller tooth version. And then he's found saber-tooth skulls on his property.
Yes.
So all of history, all of humans are like, oh no, there's only scimitar cats in Alaska. There were never saber-tooths, and he's found actual saber-tooths.
Yes. And he's only looked in 6 acres.
Can you imagine?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't know what was going on in that area. Like, why are there so many dead animals?
Yeah.
And why did they all get, like, frozen into the permafrost?
Into one spot.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
tar pit or who knows?
So I've connected him with Randall Carlson. Look at that.
Yeah.
Isn't that incredible?
That's got to be a saber-tooth,
cave
right?
lion.
Oh, cave
That's
lion.
a cave lion.
Cool.
I don't know if they thought that was there too. So I've connected him with Randall Carlson, or I'm in the process of doing that. And Randall is a proponent of the Younger Dryas impact theory. And the Younger Dryas impact theory is somewhere in the neighborhood of 12,000 years ago, there was some impacts from comets.
Oh,
and
interesting.
it probably wiped out most of the animals that we're thinking about, like North American megafauna. Like 65% of them were wiped out somewhere around that time period. He thinks they're
impact.
wiped out from comet impact.
Interesting.
And he thinks that's why you're finding these massive storages of these dead animals in this one specific area.
So why would that funnel animals into one area?
Because they
that's
were already there, but they died all at once.
I see. So it's like
it's not like over the years.
Right.
It's like an instantaneous mass die-off.
A grave site.
And he's got photographic evidence of these mass die-offs as well, too, because one of the things that they found in terms of with woolly mammoths, they found enormous like fields of them, where they've not just found like one dead one, but hundreds of them. And they find them with broken legs.
Right.
And he thinks that's indicative of the impact of whatever happened. I mean, it's almost like a bomb going off. They just get smacked back. But that these things most likely died in mass. And that this area where John Reeves has in Alaska is a particularly fertile area, a particularly rich area for finding these skeletons.
And it makes sense, right? Like, why else would you have 300 dead animals with fractured bones in one spot?
Exactly.
Or whatever the numbers are. But
and I mean, he has so much.
Yeah.
He has thousands and thousands of bones and many, 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 many full tusks of woolly mammoths.
Which are worth millions of dollars, right?
He's got millions of dollars worth of tusks.
Yeah.
He's got them all over the place. He gets stacks of them. They find them all the time.
Jaws.
Jaws, yeah. So it's the Boneyard,
That must be
Alaska.
a mammoth jaw, right? Because it's got the flat grinding teeth.
Yeah. Look at those teeth, man. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
So it's the Boneyard, Alaska on Instagram, and he's got it very detailed. And
He's invited me up there, actually. He sent me a message after, I think, our first show. Somehow we got on the same topic. And he sent me a message.
We talked about him, and he said he got 15,000 new Instagram followers from our conversation.
Good for him. That's great.
And then he's like, all right, I'm only going to talk to Joe and tell my whole story. And so we had him on. He's wealthy. Like, he doesn't have to talk to people about stuff.
He's choosing to.
Yeah, so he just does it because he wants to.
Yeah.
So he's like, he won't talk to journalists. He's getting all these phone calls from New York Times and these people. And he's like, fuck off.
Well, I read a thing the day or two after you guys did your show that he started like a bone rush in the East River of New York. People going to look for bones that have been dumped in the East River.
Apparently they were.
Yeah.
According to the records, they dumped a shitload of them, and he gave out the very specific location. So now there's guys combing the bottom with radar and looking for these things.
Wow.
It's really interesting.
Do you know if anybody's found anything yet?
I don't believe anybody has.
Yeah. That'll be fascinating.
I mean, it's been there for, wasn't it the 1930s that they did this? 40s?
Yeah, there's a bunch of articles yesterday about it.
Oh, look at this. Treasure hunters search New York City's East River. Ha ha. Isn't that funny? This all came from my stupid little podcast.
All from your show. You created a rush.
News is reporting this like it's, look at this.
Look, it even says spurred on by Joe Rogan podcast. Look at that.
The New York Post, they always show me some love.
Oh, nice. That's so funny. Yeah, no, that's incredible. I don't know. That whole extinct megafauna thing, the fact that North America, we used to have cheetahs and giant llamas and like
huge lions that are bigger than African lions.
Huge lions, like the amount of and the abundance too. It wasn't like today we have great animals in North America, but the abundance is so much lower than Southern Africa. But it used to be like something like 8 times higher.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like just walking? Imagine like this wasn't here in Austin. You decided to walk 3 blocks and you saw like 500 giant animals. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, that used to be here.
Yeah.
Nuts. Have you ever heard of the American Prairie Reserve?
Prairie Reserve? I don't think so.
Is that what it's called, Jamie? What is that thing? Ranella talked about that. They're trying to buy up massive swaths of land and reintroduce bison. Yeah, American Prairie. So
cool.
They're going to reintroduce bison and a bunch of different animals to this area, and they're even doing block management in these places. And they essentially want to rewild some of the Great Plains.
I think that's great, man. I think rewilding is the key to conservation in the future. I mean, have you seen that in...
Go scroll back up, please, so I can read that, Jamie. It says, bison used to number in the millions on the Great Plains, but animals in conservation herds now stand at around 31,000 and are considered near threatened. Because most conservation herds are less than 500 on small landscapes, the species is listed as ecologically extinct, meaning bison no longer play their critical roles in shaping prairie biodiversity. So what they want to do is bring them back.
Yep. And allow them to influence the environment and help the ecosystem.
Only an estimated 360,000 bison remain in North America today. Of these, less than 10% live in conservation herds. Most of the bison on the landscape today are raised for commercial purposes. And what's really crazy is they got down to like almost extinct.
Yeah.
They got real
to
close
a few
to extinct.
hundred, I think.
Yeah.
There's an incredible place, the Bass Pro Shops headquarters in Springfield, Missouri. The guy, Johnny Morris, the guy who runs it, he's built a museum next to the Bass Pro headquarters. It's like a personal museum, but anybody can go to it. And his big thing is the bison. And so you walk through this hallway, and they have all these ancient pictures of the bison and like these piles of skulls. Guys used to stand on a literal, you could probably find it, Jamie. There's this picture of these 2 hunters that killed, I don't know how many bison, but it's literally a mountain of skulls that they're standing on top of. And because they used to, I'm sure you know this, just sit on the railway and ping them off and all of that. And anyway, it's just fascinating the abundance of those animals that used to be in the American prairie.
Yeah, the pictures of people standing on piles of bones are so horrible.
Revolting.
It's so gross, like what they did and the quickness in which they did it, where they almost eradicated the bison from North America. And, they weren't even eating them.
No.
They were eating tongues.
Right.
And they were getting the skins from some of them later on. But a lot of it, they were doing it for the tongues.
Well, and I don't know if you know this or not, but the majority of the reason they killed them was in order to diminish the survival of the Native American people.
Was that really the majority of it?
I believe so. That was the big motivator, at least in the early days, to kill bison was because it allowed the Native Americans to survive off of that animal, right? Because they were so reliant on them. So there were all these campaigns like, go out and kill the bison, head out west, have fun, shoot them from the train. Because if you depleted those numbers, the Native Americans were forced to move, or they just didn't
Forced
have...
to go into the reservations.
Exactly.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And so it was a very ugly thing. And that part of it's sort of covered up, right? They sort of, that doesn't get spoken about a lot.
I mean, it most certainly was a tragedy, but like almost like inexcusable to the point of extinction. Like they got so close.
I'd say it's inexcusable. It was
obviously inexcusable. I don't mean inexcusable, like unfixable.
Yeah,
that's a better word.
Sorry, I see
when
what
you
you're
look
saying.
at the size of the piles of bones that they were standing on, and like that they didn't see that this how fucked up this was.
I don't believe that. We always say, oh, we didn't realize, like we thought it would last forever. I don't believe, especially because it happened in one generation.
Yeah,
right?
Quickly.
Very quickly. I don't believe that those guys, whomever they were, whether they loved hunting, didn't love hunting, loved shooting bison, whatever, I don't believe that they couldn't tell that they were having a massive impact.
Oh, they had to quickly.
Yeah.
They had to. I mean, if you're shooting millions of them, which
Right.
is just nuts. Are you aware of Dan Flores? Dan Flores, he's a professor, I think, out of New Mexico. I think one of the universities in New Mexico. But he had a paper that he wrote called Bison Ecology and Bison Diplomacy.
Oh, okay.
And his belief is that when you look at the millions and millions of bison that were in North America at one point in time with these massive herds, he's like, that is not historically, it's not what people initially saw when they first came to North America. And he believes the reason for that is that the Native Americans, when they got knocked down by 90%, they were the primary predators of the bison.
Sure.
And so then the bison numbers rose to these extraordinary numbers.
Sure.
And that it was due to the fact that these Native American populations had been killed off by smallpox.
That allowed.
Yeah. So it's his belief that with the use of the horse and with the use of rifles, that Native Americans on their own were on their way to extirpating the bison.
I don't doubt it. You know, there's quite a lot of species throughout history that have gone extinct at the hand of man that were already, even without man, like not even Native Americans. I mean, no human being. They were already, their timeline was running out. Like they were on their way out. The great auk is a great example.
What is that?
So it was this basically a penguin from the north, because penguins are from the southern hemisphere. It was like basically a penguin from the northern hemisphere.
How do you spell it?
A-U-K, great auk.
Is there a photo of those fuckers?
I don't think there's any photos, but there's a lot of artist illustrations.
Great auk.
Yeah,
Look at that.
beautiful, beautiful bird. And they...
penguin-like.
Very, yeah. And they provided oil and mostly down, meat as well, but mostly down. So there was a huge rush. I've actually held that specimen. But there was a huge rush for auk down for their feathers. But these animals, they numbered in the millions when humans, quote-unquote, wiped them out, which they did. I'm not saying they didn't, but they only... See their range over there on that range map? Do you see the red one? See the little spots? Those are actually... So their range was massive, but those 19 or whatever spots you're looking at are their only isolated populations. So while there were millions and millions of auk, they only lived in like 19 spots. And what that means is they were on their way to extinction already from other forces, because they used to have this vast range, and then it was isolated into these handful of isolated populations, and then humans found them and wiped them out. But had humans not found them, likely over another million years or so, maybe less, they probably were on their way out because they were already isolating into these small pockets. And the, I'm blanking on it now, the guillemot, is it the guillemot? No, it's a different bird, was out competing them. Another native bird was out competing them. It was not the guillemot. I'm blanking on what it's called now.
How did people kill off the passenger pigeon? Because weren't there millions and millions of passenger pigeons?
Millions. Yeah, they said they would black out the sky right here in Texas. Yeah. So one, they were hunted tremendously, but the main reason that they totally went extinct was they were such a flocking bird that once their numbers were reduced to the point that they couldn't have such large flocks, they weren't successful any longer. So they weren't able to continue their normal behavior once their flock density got too low. So it wasn't like they shot I think they did shoot every last passenger pigeon, they shot the last one, but it wasn't the last one because they had shot every single other surviving one. It was the last one because we shot them up, and then their population started to decline, and once their population got to a certain capacity, they no longer had the ability to behave the way that they had typically behaved in these huge flocks, and that was making them unsuccessful.
How did they not know that they were on their way to getting rid of them? How did they not know that was happening?
Again, I don't believe they didn't. I think they did.
Isn't it crazy how different people look at things like wildlife conservation today versus just a few hundred years ago? It's like, whoops, guess we killed all the bison.
Yeah, totally. But that's why radical conservation, like bringing back mammoths and rewilding wolves and stuff like that. We need that, Joe.
Yeah.
Because conservation, I'm sorry, and this is going to upset a lot of people. I don't give a shit. We fucking suck at it. We've been doing it for 100 years, and we are losing every single year. We are not winning. There are small little successful stories, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But on a grand scale, we are losing the conservation game. So radical conservation, I don't care what it is, coming up with crazy science experiments and bringing stuff back, putting wolves in Yellowstone, whatever it is, trying something is better than not trying anything and continuing down the path we've been going.
The only animals that we're really good at conserving are the ones we want to eat.
Oh, yeah.
The ones we want to shoot.
Yeah.
So
Which is
there's
great.
more white-tailed deer in North America today than there were when Columbus arrived.
Right. And
which
that's
is
fine.
100% because of hunting.
It is.
And also because of agriculture.
Right.
Because they flock to these agriculture areas.
Cornfields.
That's why, places like Iowa, where there's
Yeah.
all these farms, there's so many deer, giant deer in Iowa.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's fine. Placing a monetary value on an animal in order to save it is great. But nobody's going to start hunting Tasmanian tiger, or Tasmanian
Right,
devils, right?
right,
Like what for?
right,
So
right.
I completely agree with you. I'm pro hunting when those funds are used the right way. They can be mismanaged, and they are all the time, especially in places that are more corrupt. But
yeah, it's actually amazing the job that wildlife biologists have done in this country and conservationists have done in this country. Like, they're really pretty goddamn good at setting up like the correct number of tags and making sure that the habitat is preserved and allocating that money for rangers and wardens and making sure that these people, like monitor these animals and stop poaching and.
In North America, we are very good at it, like on a global scale.
Yeah.
The problem is we always, doesn't matter if you're North America or anywhere, wait until the very end to do it.
We wait until shit's really bad.
Right. Oh, there's only 12 of them left or whatever. Now we're going to put in all this effort. It's like being preventative instead of reactive is the ticket moving forward. And we are starting to make that shift,
I am so interested in seeing what they decide to do. If this really takes off in Siberia with the woolly mammoths, if they reintroduce them not just in Alaska, but then bring them into Montana and bring them into the lower 48, and then start reintroducing other things. If they can figure out how to do that with a saber-toothed tiger, that would be fucking wild.
That'd be so scary.
That would be wild.
They're talking about, I think, I might have these numbers wrong, but I believe their 10 or maybe 20-year goal is 600,000 mammoths over like 1.3 million miles. So covering that whole, because the thing is
600,000 mammoths.
It's a lot of mammoths. But they'll start reproducing on their own, right?
Well,
it's not like they're going to make them all.
Tourism involved. I mean, how many people would want to go and travel to see woolly mammoths?
We're going. You and I are going to see them.
100%.
Yes.
Let's
Zero
go.
question.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if there's going to be like groups of people that want to hunt them with spears and like put like loincloths on and shit.
Fine. It's just like the whitetail, dude. Who cares? If that funds it and it keeps it going.
You can hunt them, but you can only hunt them using the tools and weapons that were available when they were alive.
Barefoot in the Arctic with a stone
no
spear.
boots. Fuck you. No tents. Fuck off. Like, you can have a teepee.
Yeah.
You got to make it yourself.
With the mammoth skin. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be wild. People would do it.
Would you do it?
No.
No?
Fuck that. Dude, hunting with a bow and arrow is tricky enough. Hunting with a spear, fuck off.
That's crazy. There are people that do it, though, right? There are spear hunters. Like, that's a thing?
Subsistent hunters.
No, I mean, like, as a sport.
Assholes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not
that good.
Too unsuccessful.
Yeah, it's like you're not good at it. It used to be legal to hunt with a spear in Alberta until a guy killed a bear with a spear and made this awful video about it, and it was a big deal. And then Under Armour, got in trouble because like they didn't support these people they weren't even really sponsored by Under Armour. These people, since there was just like this recent thing with them with poaching, and they got accused of poaching, and I think they got sentenced to probation, and they're not allowed to hunt in certain states. But it's like, why would you hunt with a spear? Like, hunting with a bow and arrow is very effective.
Sure.
If you're disciplined, and like, I am very accurate with a bow.
Sure.
I shoot an index card that I set up at a target regularly at 85 yards.
And you're consistent.
Yes, and I'm consistent.
Yeah.
I practice every day. It's not like, this is not a thing where, with a rifle, much more accurate.
Sure.
And I'm much more consistent. It's much easier to do. So you could make the argument that it's better to hunt with a rifle. I definitely could see that.
Yep.
But if you do the work, and if you are disciplined enough, and if you practice enough, and if your technique is right, you can be very, very effective with a bow. I mean, you can go out there and see all the skulls I have. I mean, I've killed a lot of
seen them,
elk with bows and arrows, and a lot of deer. I eat them all.
Right.
This is a very effective way to get meat. But a spear is so inefficient.
And you're maiming the
just,
animal.
Yes, and you're not going to kill it quickly.
Right.
I mean, unless you get the drop on one that's sleeping, and you're like 5 feet away and you chuck it right through the rib cage and kill it quickly.
What's the likelihood of that?
Not very likely.
Yeah.
The likelihood is that you're going to wound this thing, and then you're going to like chase it down, and then you're probably going to stick it again, and
and it's miserable for everything.
Yeah, this guy, I think he threw I think the spear he threw, it had a GoPro on it.
Oh, okay. So you got this horrible
And
perspective.
it was all for social media. It was all for the clicks.
It's ugly.
And then they made it illegal. So now it's illegal in Alberta to hunt with a spear because of this one individual.
That's probably
And
good.
I think it is good.
Yeah.
It's like, you use a rifle. Use a
Right.
bow and arrow.
Right.
You know, you can kill them very easily with a bow and arrow. I mean, they allow baiting up there.
Gotcha.
Because they have to reduce the populations. They have a very high number of black bears up there.
I
very
see.
high. And so they use baiting, which is they'll set out like donuts.
Sure,
and all
sure,
sorts
and
of
the bears
sweet
smell
things,
it
and the
and
bears
come in,
come.
yeah.
And you can shoot 2 bear a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they're trying to give out tags because they want people to hunt these things.
Is the number of black bear overpopulated due to them eating people's garbage, due to not enough grizzly bears? Like, why are there too many black bears
Grizzly
up there?
bear population is increasing too, to the point where they're making an argument that you should have tags for grizzly bears. 'Cause
Interesting.
My friends John and Jen, who live up in Alberta,
Mm-hmm.
I've been up to their place before. They're seeing a lot of grizzlies now. They're seeing them all over the place up there.
Oh,
now.
interesting.
Yeah, but by far more black bear. But
Yeah.
you know what the biggest population of black bear in North America is?
Where?
New Jersey.
Really?
More black bear per capita in New Jersey than anywhere else in the country. They're everywhere.
I have had an ongoing, I don't know if you've seen any of this on my Instagram stories. I haven't posted on my page, but I have had an ongoing battle with a mother black bear and her cub. Have you been
really?
seeing this?
No.
Oh, it's
In your
really funny.
yard?
In my yard,
In
yeah.
Santa Barbara?
In Santa Barbara.
Yeah, there are a lot of them.
I've lived there for 15 years. I saw one once on a hike on a hillside. And then 6 months ago, I wake up, there's all this ruckus. You know, I'm fast asleep. I'm like, what's going on? The dog's barking. I head outside, and there is a black bear on top of our chicken coop ripping the panels off.
Whoa.
And I run up to it. I'm screaming. I'm like, hey, get out of here, bear. I'm in my boxers. I don't even have a light on, nothing. Because it was Santa Barbara. Nothing, like, happens at night there, right?
Yeah.
And we have an acre, and so it's, you know, pretty spacious, but it's all fenced in. This black bear has torn through our fence, come in,
man.
ripped the chicken coop to shreds, killed my kid's favorite chicken, killed all the other, you know, we have like 20 chickens. Well, we did then. Now we have like 5. And has just been gone through these chickens. And so I scare that bear off. I'm like, that was an anomaly. It'll never happen again. Happens again the next night.
Well, now they know where the chickens
Now
are.
they
It's
know.
going to happen constantly.
But so I've been trying all these non-lethal mitigation methods, right? So we reinforced the fence, didn't work. I put up these proximity alarms. That worked at least for a few months. Bear came back, killed our rabbits. We had 2 Flemish giant rabbits. They're chowed now. You know, now I'm thinking about getting a paintball gun and putting some mace in it or something. I don't want to kill the thing.
You're
I don't
not
wanna
allowed to kill them. That's part of the problem.
and I wouldn't
You'd have to
anyway.
get I would.
Yeah.
You'd have to get a depredation permit.
A tag, yeah, sure. And I mean, I'm sure if I called Fish and Game, or maybe they're going to hear this, it's going to become a thing. But
They're never going to stop. The thing about bears is
Once they know.
Yeah, once they know.
And you
they
can't
get
stop
habituated.
them. You
Yeah.
cannot stop them.
Can't
That's what's,
stop them.
Any other animal I've ever encountered or worked with, you can mitigate like almost very easily. Put up a fence, no problem, right?
No,
Done.
they're going to keep coming.
This girl and her cub.
Have you ever seen the video of these giant bears brawling in Far Rockaway, New Jersey?
No.
Oh, you need to see this because it's crazy. It's a very residential neighborhood.
And they're just
Yeah,
clawing at
it's
each other.
Normal suburbs where, like, you know, kids are waiting for the school bus.
Yeah.
And we're talking like 300-pound plus black bear just going at it. Look at this.
Oh my! They're on the guy's porch practically.
Yeah.
Holy crap!
So they're fighting over garbage. Like, who gets access to the garbage. Look at the size of these fuckers.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
these
wild.
are big bears. I mean, this is the kind of bear, like both of these bears, the kind of bear that you would want to hunt. Now, the governor of New Jersey, the most recent governor, he ran on a platform of stopping the bear hunt.
Oh,
Because all the
interesting.
dorky liberals that live in, like, in the nice cities, they don't have any idea what the problem is.
The majority
like.
of the voters don't understand or connect with the problem. Yeah.
Which is the same in a lot of places where these urban areas vote on things that happen in parts
Rural
of-
areas.
Yeah, in rural areas where they have no idea what the problem is.
Yeah.
So the amount of human-bear interactions went up so much, by over 200%, that they had to reinstate the bear hunt within 2 years of him being the governor.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, like, right away. So what did he get it in 2020? And then by 2022, he's like, okay, enough.
And has it
Keep
made an
killing
impact?
them.
Has it helped? Yeah.
Well, they're going to start hunting them again now. And they're
Gotcha.
actually going to raise the number of bears you're allowed to kill.
Gotcha.
Raise the number of tags.
Just to
because
level it out.
They have to.
But
There's so many of them.
That's the thing people don't understand is, like, we're at a state where we have to manage the wildlife. We don't have a choice. This idea that, like, let's just let it all roam free and everything, it doesn't work that way anymore.
No.
There's too much human development. There's
Right.
too many urban areas, and we have made an imbalance. If everything was wild and natural, sure, I completely agree. Leave it alone.
Right.
But it's not. This is not natural. These bears have bred in a residential area. They're feeding on garbage.
It's totally
Like,
natural for them to be fighting on stairs.
Totally. Yeah, that's what
That's
I
their
mean.
natural battling habitat. Yeah.
And I'm not saying get rid of the bears. Don't wipe out bears. No one's saying that. But
no,
it has to be managed.
You have to manage them.
Yeah.
And you also have to make them fearful of humans. If you
Right.
don't, like, I mean, the thing about what you're doing, trying to scare that bear off, it's not going to work.
No, I agree with
I
you.
mean, when they catch bears going into people's garbage, they have to relocate the bears.
Yeah.
They call them naughty bears.
Yeah, naughty
That's a
bears.
naughty bear, and then they relocate them because if you don't relocate them, they know where the garbage is. Why
Yeah.
would they go hunt a deer when they could just go into your garbage?
Right.
And pull out that Subway sandwich that you didn't finish.
Well, my ultimate solution is we have 5 chickens left, and if those 5 chickens go, we're done with chickens for a little bit. That's my
not a
ultimate
good solution. Unfortunately, you live in a state where there's no way you can get a permit to shoot that thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know,
I mean,
especially if you live in only 1 acre.
Yeah.
If 1 acre is not good, even with a bow and arrow, because you could
Right.
get a pass through and it can
Totally.
hit somebody's fucking.
Totally.
A matter of fact, my friend Bruce said that one of his neighbors, someone shot a crossbow through a deer and it went through their window and stuck into their wall.
holy shit.
Yeah,
Can
one
you
of
imagine
his
that?
neighbors' walls got penetrated by a crossbow bolt. But whoever did that's a fucking asshole.
Yeah, they're an idiot.
and it's not legal either. It's
I'm
like
sure.
some jackass.
I'm sure.
Who
Yeah.
wanted to shoot a deer, maybe for food.
Probably poaching the deer with a crossbow, and yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, that does happen. I mean, it does happen, especially in poor neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Like you could get so much meat off of a deer.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
eating it for weeks and weeks.
Dude, last time I saw you at your LA studio, you gave me like 40 pounds of elk. I think I had my
Yeah.
last piece like 3 months ago. Like I savored that. I kept
Yeah.
it. I doled it out. I'd only have it on special occasions. It was so good.
Yeah, I eat so much of that.
I know you do. Yeah,
So
thank
good
you for
for you.
that.
My
Yeah,
pleasure.
It's so good. It's
So good for you too. It's so nutrient dense. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like no other meat.
It really is.
Tastes
Yeah.
different, feels it's like it looks different. It's like more firm when you push on it. It's like
And you do the liver, the heart, the everything.
yeah,
from
I eat
it, right?
everything. Yeah, I eat everything. I've been feeding the liver a lot to my dog too.
Yeah?
Yeah, I cook it and
Maybe that's why he's got that big head.
no, he's just.
I'm
but
kidding.
my God, the way he eats it, it's crazy.
He goes nuts for it.
Like
Yeah.
frenzied, like he's
Yeah.
a little crackhead. Like he can't help himself.
I do that we get tuna in California. I think I've shown you some pictures. And like I'll scrape the carcass, scrape the frame, and get all the bits of mushy, fatty tuna that's quite delicious, to be honest. But then I'll just boil it for the dog. The house stinks when you're boiling it. You have to cook it outside, whatever. But then you give this dog just a bowl of boiled tuna meat.
Oh my God, they go nuts.
They go nuts. Like
Yeah.
I've never seen him look at his dog food or kibble or a treat or anything like that.
No, that stuff sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
But you give him some elk liver, they go bonkers.
Yeah.
Yeah, he loves it.
Yeah.
He like sits there like staring at me, salivating, little drips on the ground, a little
He
drool.
goes nuts.
It's funny.
He probably knows when you're cooking it, right? And
Oh,
he's
yeah.
like, he's dialed in.
Yeah, he knows also when I'm using a chopping board that there's a 1 out of 10 chance he's getting some of that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he'll like sit there, he hears chop,
Yeah.
chop, just looks up
Wired
at me.
in. Yeah.
Come on, bro. Let this be the time. Let it be liver. Yeah, but animal organs. It's funny how human beings at one point in time favored animal organs.
Right.
But it was the primary thing that we like to eat.
Yeah.
Like I had Sonny from Best Ever Food Review. He's got that.
Okay.
Have you ever seen that YouTube show?
No, I don't know.
It's a great YouTube show. And he travels all over the world eating with tribal people and going to exotic locations
Oh,
and
cool.
eating their foods. And it was amazing. Like he spent time with the Hadza in Tanzania, and he spent time with all these different tribal people where they killed a goat and they're scooping up the blood, the coagulated blood, and slurping
Drinking it,
So
yeah.
he's eating it there with them. He's like, oh.
Yeah, that's gnarly.
And they also take raw liver and squirt bile on it and
oh, don't eat
gallbladder
bile.
juice.
No.
Yes.
Oh, that's gnarly.
And they enjoy it. That's what they like. They like to dip it in bile and blood and a mixture of the two.
I get eating liver. I've had the blood mixed with milk that the Maasai drink. They like put a plug in the neck.
Yeah.
I've had that, and it's palatable. I've accidentally cut the bile open on a fish once or twice, and just Oh, dude. I mean, maybe mammal bile's better, but I highly doubt it.
He says it's not.
Yeah.
He says it's awful.
So gross,
He
dude.
says it's fucking disgusting.
Yeah, I bet.
For whatever reason, these people have developed a taste for it, which is really fascinating.
But it probably goes back to what we were saying earlier, which is have they developed a taste for it, or do they just know that it's that good for them? So their brain is telling them, because of the options available, eat it. Like,
Right.
This is going to benefit you.
Yeah, there's no options. It's just
Right.
survival.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
But liver was always a big thing with the Comanche. The Comanche would take liver, raw liver, and they would squirt bile on it.
Oh, I didn't realize that as well.
It's crazy. Like it's a very common thing to eat it that way.
It's become trendy again, too. And maybe it's just the pages that I follow or whatever, but I'm seeing way more of the eat animal organs, the consume every part of it now than I ever did even a year ago.
Well,
I
I
would
think
say.
that started off with Paul
Yeah.
Saladino, and then it moved its way to the Liver King.
Sure.
And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people that were duped into thinking they could actually look like that guy if they were eating raw liver and raw testicles.
But the message of eat those things is a good message.
Yes.
Yeah,
Eat those
right?
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Eat organs. That's really good for you. But
Yep.
but the idea that that's going to turn you into. But I did read something about. Actually, I was informed by a friend that eating testicles, that it is possible that eating testicles has an androgenic effect.
Oh,
And that
interesting.
and you can actually get some oral form of testosterone from eating testicles. See if you can Google that. Because they've tested some testicle supplements. And through testing these testicle supplements, they found trace amounts of what would show up in a drug test as taking oral testosterone.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Also, just saying testing testicle supplements 3 times fast is. I was like waiting for you to fumble it. It was testing testicle supplements. That's cool. I mean, you're eating testosterone.
Yes.
Right. So it's just there is
Right.
something there. You're not just digesting it. I guess you're actually absorbing.
Right.
It.
And
Yeah.
well, Rocky Mountain oysters was always like a big thing that cowboys would eat whenever they would castrate bulls
Yep.
and turn them into steers.
It's good. Have you had it?
I have.
It's
Yeah.
good.
It's not
Tastes
bad.
great. Yeah.
It's not bad.
I
Yeah.
mean, everything deep fried tastes good.
Yeah, I
but-
mean, it's not the best thing in the world.
Right.
You know, there's
Right.
definitely, I'd rather have a ribeye.
Yeah, any
That's
day.
better.
Yeah.
But
it's edible. You're not like
Yes.
forcing it down.
Right,
You're
right,
like, this
right.
is not bad.
Yeah, it's not nasty.
Right.
It's just like, this is not bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's, you see anything about that?
No. If people have looked at this,
Google.
this is a explanation about it.
No, I understand. I was going to tell you, Google
There's stuff.
the whole package. Google testosterone found in the whole package. Desiccated testicle supplements. Because I think the whole package is one of those Liver King supplements. Him and Paul Saladino both were partners in one of these companies, whether it's Ancestral Supplements or the other one,
Okay.
where they sell desiccated or dehydrated liver and heart and kidneys. And I've taken their supplements. They're really excellent. But I think one of them, and I think it's called the whole package, has been shown to contain some oral form of testosterone.
Is it the whole beast? Because I've seen
I
that
don't
being.
No.
see anything
Oh,
about
whole
package.
package. You're right. Yeah. Okay.
It says it's got testicle in it, but I don't see anything about testosterone.
Yeah, but I mean the actual testing of it, not from them, from someone else.
But I think that's great that people are choosing to eat these things, not just for their health, but the fact that there's much less animal waste. It's not all just going to dog food and things like that. It's like people are starting. It's trendy. It's cool. Paul, Liver King, whomever, they're turning this into a thing.
Yeah, Jamie, he actually sent it to me. Hold on a second, I can send it to you. Now I'm remembering. Hang on one second. Yeah, it is. I mean, it is good in that regard.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second. Here it is. Jamie. Why? Is your airdrop on? There it goes. All right. Okay. Are you receiving that? Okay. So pull that up. So this is someone actually tested it. And this is what the results were that they had found. And this is from the whole package. So androstenedione 317-dione, 20 nanograms per gram.
I don't know what any of
30
this
nanograms.
means.
Testosterone, 250 nanograms per gram, 303 to 300 nanograms per gram. So what it is showing that there's some kind of androgens that are available that people have detected in this supplement. Now, is that orally active? That's the question. Like, does it actually increase your testosterone by eating it?
Sure.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm not the guy for that. But eating organs, just the sheer nutrient content of like liver per se. I know a lot of people who, like my friend Derek, he eats 1 ounce of liver every day.
Does he do it raw?
No, he cooks it.
He cooks it. Okay.
But he does it just for health benefits.
Yeah. And he feels a genuine change from eating it. Yeah.
I mean, it's undeniable that it's like a nutrient dense food. It's really a superfood.
I know it's been said, on social media and stuff, but it's a lot of animals pick the liver if they have their choice. A lot of predators pick out livers. You know, orcas, lions, hyenas, all kinds of things. Wolves, if they have the choice, they are eating the liver immediately.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, that tells you something, right? That really does. It tells you that there is so much vital nutrient in that organ that it's being selected for over muscle meat, over other tissue, and you get different stuff from different parts of the animal. Skin has different stuff, but the fact that that's being selected for first, I mean, that should be an indicator. I think we can live our lives by things animals show us.
Yeah, well, you definitely can learn something from them. You've done a lot of diving and, you do a lot of fishing. Are you concerned at all about mercury levels in fish?
Yeah. I think that, if I had a diet of exclusively bluefin tuna, I'm certain I'd get, mercury poisoning, foggy-headed, all the things that come from that. But as long as you're varying it, and you're not, like, I think being pescatarian with wild apex fish, like there's certain choices, right? Certain fish have much lower mercury levels than others.
And it's the apex ones, the ones that are the predators. They're the ones who get the higher fish content or the higher mercury content because they're eating all these other fish that spend a lot of time in the depths of the ocean where the heavy metal poisoning is. Is that the idea?
That's part of it. It's really just the bioaccumulation. So every fish has the same amount. This is very vague, but every fish has the same amount of mercury. But if you're a fish at the top of the food chain and you eat 1,000 small fish, that's all that mercury is accumulating because it doesn't dissipate. Versus if you're a fish lower down in the food chain, like a sardine, that's just eating microorganisms and algae. It's not accumulating a lot of mercury.
It's interesting you say that because I tested positive for arsenic from sardines.
Really?
Yeah.
How does that happen?
I got a blood test, and my doctor was like, "You got arsenic in your blood." I was like, "What?"
That's terrible.
Yeah, and he goes, "It's not a lot." He goes, "It's a very small amount." He goes, "But what are you eating?" And he goes, "Are you eating any sardines?" I go, "Yeah, I eat a lot. I eat like 3 cans a day." I was eating a lot of sardines.
That's a lot.
Young and single and stupid.
Yeah.
And he said, "Don't do that." He said, "Let's do it again in a couple of months. Just cut that out of your diet." I cut it out of my diet. Went back. Nothing.
What,
no
do you know
arsenic
how
at
the
all.
arsenic is in sardines? I
Just
didn't
heavy
even
metal
know about
toxins.
That. Yeah.
They spend a lot of time in the low depths of the ocean where a lot of that stuff accumulates. Apparently.
And all the radiation is more. Yeah, that's so there was a lot of concern about like our eastern bluefin tuna population, right? There's a population of bluefin tuna that basically just swim between Central America, us in California, Northern America, and over to Japan and back. They just do this big circle every year. And there's a lot of concern that when they're going over to Japan from Hiroshima and things like that, they're picking up a lot of radiation, and that's actually activating the mercury, right? And,
really?
Yeah. So there's been published studies on this, and I don't know exactly how much it's affected in those fish, but the fish going over there undeniably have higher amounts of mercury than the fish over on the west coast of the United States.
Wow.
Yeah.
The radiation activates the mercury.
Yeah, there's been some. I don't understand how it's connected, but yeah.
How much time is there left in the ocean for these fish? If you think about how quickly, we want to talk about how we wiped out woolly mammoths and we wiped out bison. We are wiping out fish at a fucking staggering rate.
An alarming rate. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's crazy, before we talk about how much time is left, scientists predict that 8 years is all it would take to bring it back to 100%, or maybe it was 98%.
What?
If we stopped fishing the ocean for 8 years, it would be back to nearly 100% fecundancy, 100% perfect, nearly.
But we'd have to get all the countries on board.
Yeah,
That means
it's
for
impossible.
8 years, all the fishermen would starve.
And not to
not
mention,
gonna do
fish
it.
is the primary source of protein for like the majority of the planet.
Is it really?
It is, yeah.
The majority of the planet.
Yeah, that's certainly everywhere coastal. But the majority of the planet's majority of protein comes from fish.
Wow.
Yeah, which is why, and we are wiping out, it's 100 million sharks a year we're killing. Just sharks. 100 million a year. Just think about that. That is so many animals.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so, are the oceans fucked? My short answer is no, because I don't like to think in that doom and gloom. I think that we have the ability and the knowledge to overcome it. We just have to figure out how we're going to do that. I think if we continue at the rate that we're doing it, we're going to see a big collapse. And by the way, people seem to forget about this. If we lose the ocean, we all die. It's the biggest carbon neutralizer. It gives us all of our protein. Like, there's a million reasons why the ocean, it's where all our rain comes from. Everything is connected to the ocean. And if we fuck that up completely, we're gone. Yeah. And yet here we are, like, day after day, doing everything we can.
Just dumping stuff into the ocean.
Everything.
And using giant nets and scooping up every fucking living thing that gets caught in it. Yeah.
Everything. Those trawlers that are like scraping the bottom, all the starfish and skates and coral reefs. It's crazy that we do
Meanwhile,
that.
I love sushi.
It's the best. Favorite food in the whole world. I know, but we're all hypocrites in that regard.
It's
but
so fucked. There's just so many goddamn people and so much need.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, if people were forced to gather their own food and hunt for their own food, and you had like a few months out of the year that all you did was hunt and fish, and then you stored it all and stockpiled it, and we'd have a completely different thought about like where food comes from.
100%.
But the fact that you could just pull in a Jack in the Box, get a burger,
Right.
or
Eat a piece of cow, no
fillet of
problem.
fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the connectedness, man. I stand by that. I think I've become more and more of a proponent for it as I get older, but it's just like people need to connect with nature and connect with animals. If they can do that, they can have appreciation. They're more willing to make smart choices. I'm not saying don't eat sushi. I fucking love sushi. It's my favorite food in the whole world. But I still try and make smart choices. Like, I try not to get 5 orders of bluefin tuna for the obvious reason that that's typically bluefin tuna that's getting wiped out, right?
Right.
But it's because I'm connected, because I go diving and I love the ocean and I see those fish. And so I just think people need to connect to nature more.
Yeah, we're very disconnected. It's just such a new thing, too, that human beings live in these massive population centers like
Right.
Los Angeles and New York, and are so removed from the process of like where their food comes from.
Completely and utterly. To the point that humans are disgusted by it. Like, you see these comments online where like, oh my God, how can you cut that fish up? Or how can you fillet that, that deer or clean that elk or whatever? It's like, where the fuck do you think your food's coming from?
Yeah.
And they're disgusted by the process. And yet those are the same people that are going and eating it.
Well, and they're the same people, if they're not eating fish and meat, they don't understand what monocrop agriculture is doing to the earth.
And that's 10 times worse.
It's the worst.
Dude, we went to Borneo. I've never been so heartbroken in my entire life looking at an environment. We went to Borneo to look for this primate species, Miller's grizzled langur. And from the moment...
What are you looking for? You just mumbled that out.
Sorry, the Miller's grizzled langur, called the Dracula monkey. It's a monkey with this big collar. We found it. First one seen in 30 years. We got it on trail camera.
What does that look like?
It's awesome. Jamie can pull it up. It's, you know what a langur
So you
is?
found one? So they were thought to be extinct?
Yeah, for 30 years. Yeah.
Wow.
not
They
as-
call him a Dracula monkey?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yep.
What a
So
cool looking monkey.
The picture to the left is our picture. That one right there.
Right there?
Yeah, that's my picture.
Wow.
I think. Yeah, I think that's our picture. Rare monkey
Rare
discovered.
monkey
Yeah.
discovered in Borneo.
Yep. So they hadn't been seen for like 30 years, and there's this incredible professor I worked with, and she pointed me in the right direction. Then we worked with the right people. There's me right there in the Dracula monkey. Anyway, yeah. So we went and found this guy. But the point being, we landed in Borneo. We drove for 2 days to get to this primary piece of jungle. For 2 days, all we saw was oil palm. For 2 days. I'm not joking. It's just like 8-9 hours of driving per day, plantation after plantation of monoculture. One singular crop, wiping out virgin primary jungle to plant this oil palm. It was devastating. Nothing lives in it.
And palm oil is used for
Everything.
everything.
Your Nutella, your peanut butter, it's like the cheapest version of oil. And so it's in tons, especially sweet food products. It's in everything. And again, I love Nutella, but I try not to buy it because I've been to Borneo and I've seen it. I'm not saying everybody can do that, but at least I've been connected to it enough to now try and make those decisions, you know? And it's just, man, that monoculture and seeing it. And then you get into this tiny little patch of virgin jungle, right? That's like, whatever, a couple 100 miles or whatever, tiny compared to the island. And it's so alive and verdant. Yeah, this is what it looks like. Wow. Just for days, Joe. I'm not kidding. It is devastating to see.
And
there's
so all that wildlife, all that habitat is all destroyed for this monocrop.
Yep, all gone. Yes, look at that picture. 1950 versus 2020. Look at that. 1950, look at the amount of virgin jungle. 2020, look what's left.
Wow. It's literally like there's maybe 30% left.
And so we drove up that sort of coastline that you see there, and it's just, you just see nothing. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Jamie. And you just, it's unfathomable that we can do this. And it's because it's cheap. It's because labor in Indonesia is cheap. It's cheap to produce the crop. Everything's getting torn up like that, looking like those mines, and that's just for plantation. And nothing, you go into it at night, right? Like with a headlamp or whatever, silent. Just silent. No crickets, no bats, no birds, silent. You get into these little patches of jungle, noises and crickets and bugs and bees and monkeys.
I heard the night in the jungle is just deafening.
It's amazing. It's deafening, but I don't care who you are, you will sleep well listening to it because it's natural. It's like the kind of thing you pay for to play, you know, when you go to sleep, sleep sounds. And it's like loud and crazy, but like you lay down and you listen to it and you just drift off right to sleep. Whereas if I'm in New York, you know, and like in a high rise staying there, I can't sleep at all listening to the ambulances and the, you know, it's crazy.
Yeah, no, I can't either.
Yeah.
I don't like hearing that shit. Well, Forrest, Still Alive. It's your book. It's available now. Did you do the audio version of it?
I did.
Did you narrate it?
I did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
My scratchy voice, if
well,
you want.
I'm happy. I love when an author reads their own book. It's really depressing when they hire some actor to read it when you know they're disconnected from the subject matter.
Especially you helped me write that. You don't even know that.
How did I help you?
When we went to see the Wolves together, we were sitting in the car, and you're like, dude, get out from under the thumb of these networks. Do your own thing. Do more of it. Because I was griping about how tough it is to get, you know, Animal Planet Discovery, whatever, on board for some of these projects. And you're like, just go fucking do it, dude.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right. And that was like, I think we hung out in January and COVID hit in March.
Yes.
And COVID hit, and I was like, well, I'm stuck at home. I'm going to write a book.
Well, I'm glad you did, man. I'm glad you're thinking along those ways because I think if you did a show and just did it on YouTube or did it on some other platform, I mean, you'd probably have way more views even than you're getting off of the networks because people just aren't watching TV like they used to. People are really fascinated by the internet. They're watching things on their phones. They're watching Apple TV and Netflix and that's where people are getting their stuff. They're getting it from the internet.
You're right. And that's where I'm going. We've started this thing called The Wild Times, which is our YouTube thing, and it's super fun. It's very like talk show, you know, but we talk about wildlife news and what's happening in the world and started to do some content for it.
Beautiful.
It's fun, man. And I'm
How
still
do people
doing the
find
shows. It's on YouTube and Spotify and all those places called The Wild Times.
Is it
podcast.
Your YouTube channel? What is the channel itself?
There it is. Right there.
Okay, Wild Times Pod on YouTube.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's fun, and that's, you know, the book, and I'm still doing Shark Week shows and stuff like that. I'm just trying to do all of it. And a big part of that is thanks to you. So.
My pleasure, brother.
Yeah.
My pleasure. I'm excited you're doing that. Thank you very much for being here. Go get the book, folks. It's out now. All right. Thanks.
Thanks, dude.
Bye, everybody.